Chapter 1. In the early spring of Desu Town, it was still cold to the bone. The withered and yellow forest was covered with snow. When the wind blew, the fine snowflakes scattered in twos and threes. In the cold wind, a few old maidservants whispered faintly. The second daughter of the Su family was kicked out of the house. She deserves it. I heard that she delayed the future of the first young master of the Su family. It's good that she was not beaten to death. Tut tut. The sky was just beginning to brighten. On the mountain path, an old woman with her body bent over was walking towards him. She walked all the way to a run-down thatch cottage at the foot of the mountain. She patted the frost on her body with one hand, pushed open the door with a creak, and squeezed in. She then immediately closed the wooden door, as if the door could block out the cold. The charcoal fire in the hut had long been extinguished. The old woman frowned, and her weathered face showed some distress. She walked to the bed quickly and lifted the quilt, which was as hard as iron. The little girl curled up in it, and her face was blue and purple because of the cold. What a sin. The second madam is too cruel. Anyway, she is the second miss of the Su family. The old woman wiped her tears, carefully took out a bowl of steaming rice soup from her arms, and poured it down Su Aria's throat. Then she immediately made a charcoal fire in the hut, held Su Aria in her arms for a while, and left in a hurry. In a few hours, the third miss would get up. She had to hurry back to take care of her. Even if she knew that the second miss would not live past the early spring, the old woman still had a trace of hope in her heart, so she secretly came to take care of her every morning. Shortly after the old woman left, Su Aria, who was lying motionless on the straw bed, suddenly straightened up like a corpse. Then her eyelashes trembled slightly, revealing a pair of empty eyes. The charcoal fire kept jumping. After a long time, Su Aria's eyes moved, and then her little head slightly tilted, focusing on the charcoal fire. In her previous life, her face was ruined by this charcoal fire. "Mammy Lee," Su Aria murmured. She tightened the thin quilt on her body and struggled to get out of bed. Finally, she simply leaned against the charcoal brazier, and then she felt the biting chill
Chapter 11.
receded a little.
Butler,
There was a
give
small
Aria
pile
more
of
pocket
charcoal
money
in the
every
corner of the
month.
hut.
Aria,
She knew that they were all
concentrate
stolen
on
from the
cooking
third
the
sister's
sister.
room.
You don't
by
need to
Mammy
do
Lee.
anything else.
The third sister
By the
was her
way,
mother's favorite.
leave a piece
Her mother
of
allocated
iridescent
50
cloud
kilograms of
refined silk
charcoal
from
in
the
the
silk
winter
shop
in the
which
provincial
could not be
town
used up.
for Aria,
Looking at the
to make
new
a sprouts
suit
on the
of
bare
fitting
branches
clothes
outside
for
the hut.
Thank
Su
you, Father.
Aria's eyes
After saying
showed
these,
confusion.
Su
This
Huanli left in a
confusion
hurry.
was fleeting.
Mammy Lee was
and
very
soon
excited.
turned into a
At
bottomless
first,
abyss.
when Second Miss
all
asked her
kinds
to
of
find
things from her
those
previous
leaves,
life,
she was
flashed
reluctant.
through her mind.
She thought
She was
Second
the
Miss
second
was
miss of
making
the
trouble.
Su Aria.
Su
She
Huanli
didn't
had
expect
lived
her
to get
life
so many
was
years
even
with her.
worse,
But it was
than
the
May.
first
Mammy,
time for him to
help me
eat
clean
such
up these
delicious
snacks.
snacks.
Until
he immediately ate up his
in a
own
life.
Miss,
Don't
Ariel
knock yourself.
mad
Butler
at
swallowed
Su
his
Aria.
saliva.
Susie smiled
as
as
he
he was
watched
very
past
happy.
in the
The
Su
old
family.
master
If you looked
never
carefully,
had a
the
good
eldest
appetite.
find that her
Even at
eyes
noon,
were as
Su
calm
Ching would only
as an
eat a
fourth
small
brother.
stagnant water.
Su Ching
without
would have thought that
ripples.
such a
Gave her
big
a
rice
little
bowl
motivation
would
to
retire
retire
by
to
the
the
old
old
but
man
after the
and
disaster,
immediately
wrote a
wrote a
letter.
letter
Even the
and
eldest
gave it to the
brother,
mother.
alienated.
Delicious.
Go to the county town.
Thank you for your
Be
help.
sure to send
Every
this
day,
letter
Su
under the
Huanli
torture
laughed.
of her mother.
The
And
butler
reached
was
out his
shaking
hand
the heavy
to
work
touch
after
Su
10
Lee's
years.
hand.
Do you mean
She
Mr. Everyone
suffered
loved
from
chronic
byway
diseases.
building.
His daughter
She
was
only her
so he has no
20s,
friendship
but
with
she looked
our
like an
Su
old
family.
woman.
The more he looked
in
at
her
her,
30s,
the more he
yes.
liked her.
40s.
If we
He
wait
even
ignored
ignored
the
the
unhappiness
unhappiness of his daughter's
Susie
life.
quota will not be
Butler,
who is 1 year
call the
younger
mammy
than
who
Su
takes
Huanli
care of
seemed
you.
to
She
be
was more like
angry
her
I have a
with the
reward
stupidity
because
of
her
the butler.
face
Su
was
was
stunned
seeing
when
where
she
she
heard
heard
the
the
Su
words.
family
And
intended
the
to
butler
show
suddenly
that
realized
Mary
from
Jane
and
smiled.
said happily,
But in
she
Su
could not
Huanli's
master.
eyes,
She
and
was
he was
very
so
wise.
The Su family
Mammy
also
Lee was
said
invited by
she
the
could
old
not
sent it
be
to him
used at
in
all.
person.
Under
Under
the
the suggestion of
thought,
Su
Susan
Huanli
said,
had made
she
her.
didn't
Finally
expect
married,
that the
as soon as she
problem
came
would be
over
troubles
for
she
many
knelt
days,
was not a
down in
wife,
fear,
but a
begged for
concubine.
mercy.
The next day,
but that day was the
Mr. Lee
happiest
finished
day of
reading
her
the letter
life
and looked at Butler. Please
Su,
forgive
she had
her
been
for the
tortured
sake
and scared.
He said time had
Doubtfully.
already smoothed
The
the
old
zones
bone
he
really
really
as
laughed.
mysterious as
Her
you
husband treated
Mammy
her
Lee
exceptionally
you
well.
misunderstood.
And could even the snacks sent by the second miss. In the second year, she gave birth
The
to
old
his
master
son.
is
What you
very
hear
happy.
is true.
She thought that she
After
finally
he
got
is
rid of the
born.
bonus.
Mammy Lee
And
immediately
Master
returned from
especially
worry
asked
a few
joy
months
to bring
later,
one
she
for
knelt
you.
down. Her husband
and
was
he
quickly
quickly
apologized.
apologized.
The Zongzi is cold.
I was
and her
rude.
son was
It
strange
doesn't
to
matter.
death.
You're
Mistily
also
looking
thrown into the
yellow
dirtiest
place.
place.
I asked
butler's
her,
hand and
which counted you by the
but he
zone.
still
She knew
waved
that
his
all
hand
warmly
and
asked
let
her
the
to
maid
smile.
take it.
This level of food was
Master
rare
has
the
admired
white
even in the
for
restaurants
time.
of the county.
Even
the
if she is
byway
still
building
young.
opened by misty
How could she make
rays
such
the fact that
delicious
a restaurant
restaurants
in the county
Mammy was stunned.
Steward Sue
in just a
spared
few
no
months.
effort,
She
and
said
she
honestly,
returned from heaven.
Master, although
Susie
Sue
knew that
on the other hand, had gained a good reputation.
Every word of praise, even the ingredients were gathered.
He felt
she was willing to become
ferocious,
and
the
rest
are all
live an
piled up
ignoble life.
Master,
After a short time,
you will know it at a glance.
But she
This
secretly
fragrance.
learned
Mammy
the
Lee's
inheritance
answer. Mr. Lee
of the
suddenly
poison
surprised
doctor
and
wanted to
Sue
poison.
He saw that the maid
hurriedly
came with a
came to
tray
Sue
and
Lee's
put in the
yard,
hands.
she accidentally saw the
I have tasted countless delicacies,
her eyes,
but I have never smelled lines of tears
in front of
flow
her.
down.
Mr.
Lee
Lee
was
was
surprised
that the
Butler
Zone she was
tied
tied
on
on
the
the
gallows
gallows
said with a smile,
Is it possible that
she
area
never
has
thought
a
that
rare
God
talent?
really let her
Taste?
return to the age of
Steward
14?
Sue, who was
Gurgle.
standing at the side,
The sound from her
smiled
stomach
and
pulled
said,
Sue Lee
"Don't
back
be
to
impatient,
reality.
Minister Lee.
She lived on a rice
How about
soup
we taste it
sent by
first?"
Mammy Lee for a month.
She
She
didn't
didn't
feel
feel
it
it
when
when
she
was
was
in a coma.
Sue's.
Now she woke up and
naturally
naturally felt
Master
very hungry.
Zont Butler yet he.
Chapter 2.
With this one bite,
The cold
Squire
air poured
Lee's
into her clothes,
eyes immediately
as if to
widened.
freeze her blood.
He was like a beggar
Sue
who
Lee's
hadn't
face was
eaten
pale
for a few days,
but her expression was calm.
He ate the whole dumpling.
She shrank
in a
her
few
body
bites
and quickened her
didn't
pace.
forget to lick the grease.
She ran
off
into
his
the bamboo
hands,
forest,
causing the
in the mountain
maidservant
with ease.
to almost laugh
According
out
to the
loud.
experience of the
After
previous
swallowing
life,
all
she
the
dug out
food,
2 winter
Mr. Lee was
bamboo
stunned for a
shoots
moment
in a
and
short
sighed.
while. Butler
She held them in
Sue's
her
face
arms
changed
and ran to the
slightly.
clamshell
He thought
pile
that Mr.
by the
Lee was
river
not
to pick up a
satisfied with
complete
his own
big
tea,
clamshell.
but he heard Mr.
The
Lee
river was
sighed and
bitterly
said,
cold.
Butler
Sue
squatted by the river.
"You really made
and
me
slowly
suffer.
washed the winter
After
bamboo
eating
shoots
such delicious
and
food,
clamshells.
I will eat
the river
ordinary
reflected
food
her
as
sallow
if I were
face,
eating vegetables."
and only a pair
Steward
of black
Sue
eyes
was
could be called
overjoyed when he heard
smart
this.
and beautiful. But his face
That she
remained
could remember,
calm and
she had
collected.
hardly eaten a bite
Why
of
does
good
Steward Lee
food.
say that?
She was 14
Master
years
is going to
old,
give the recipe,
but her
of
body
Zonzi
was still
to you.
as thin
In the
as a
future,
10-year-old
you can
child.
eat it every day,
Touching her
as
cheeks
long as
without
you ask.
scars.
Mr. Lee
Sue
could
Lee
open
showed
such a
a famous
famous
restaurant
restaurant
as the
She
byway
held
building.
all the wash
Of
things
course,
in her
he was not
arms
stupid
and went into
After
the mountain
thinking
again.
for a moment,
After about
he
2
immediately
hours,
figured
she
out
came
the
down from the
cause
mountain
in effect.
and returned to the house.
He relaxed his eyebrows.
Sue Lee put the
and
clamshell
coughed
filled
slightly.
with water
He said with a
steadily
smile
on the charcoal.
"I don't
brazier.
deserve a reward
She
without
wrapped the
doing
quilt
anything."
and
Your
picked
Sioux
up
family
a
gave
few
me such
pieces
a
of
big
charcoal
gift
from the corner
I
of
can
the
help you
wall
with something.
and threw
Go
them
back
into the brazier.
and tell Master
It didn't take
Sue
long
that
for the
he doesn't
water
need to
in
worry
the
about his son.
clamshell to boil. Butler
Looking
Sue
at
was
the
relieved
steaming hot water
and said with a
Sue
happy
no
face,
longer hesitated.
"Thank you, Mr.
She
Lee."
threw some of the
I will
winter
go back
bamboo
and
shoots
send the
in
recipe and
Butler
continued
Sue
to peel
left
the
in a
winter
hurry.
bamboo shoots.
Lee Wei's eyes
Slowly,
narrowed with a smile on
the
his
fragrance of
round
the
face.
bamboo shoots,
Although he was
pervaded
addicted
the
to
house.
delicious food,
Sue Lee couldn't
he was
help
not a person who
swallowing
didn't know
saliva,
what to do,
and her stomach
His
seemed
uncle
to
had
growl
discussed with
louder.
him that as
Picking
long
up
as
a
the
branch
food
beside
sent by
her,
other families
she
was
picked up
not
some
more than
bamboo
that
shoots
sent
that
by
were
the Sioux
70%
family last
right.
year.
Regardless
80%
of the
heat.
recommendation this
Sue
year
Lee
would fall on
directly
the son of the
sucked
Sioux
them into
family.
her mouth.
This
and
delicious
swallowed them
food
after
turned
chewing
80%
for 2 or
into
3
100%.
times.
So tender. Sue Lee's eyes immediately brightened. Chapter
She
12.
eagerly looked at the
Master,
bamboo
Master,
shoots
it's great news.
rolling in the water.
The old butler said,
In fact,
as there was
soon as
no
he came
taste at
back.
all. But
Sue
for her,
Wanley was happy
even
and asked,
bitter wild vegetables
done?
could taste
It's done.
sweet. The
Not
old
to
butler
mention
clapped
winter
his
bamboo
hands
shoots,
and
which
said,
had a better taste.
Mr. Lee is
Sue
really
Lee acted
fond
quickly.
of delicious food.
She picked up the winter
He agreed at
bamboo
once.
shoots.
Sue
and
Wanley
ate them
smiled
after a little
coldly
cooking.
and said
In
a
less
low
than an hour,
voice, if
Sue
this
Lee
dish is
ate
sent to the
2
restaurant,
winter bamboo
it will
shoots
definitely be
and
a
was
great
80%
profit.
full.
He was raised
Suddenly,
by Lishanbao.
she had some
If he doesn't
strength in her
agree,
body
it will be
and
strange.
didn't feel weak anymore.
Speaking of this,
After carefully
Sue Wanley
processing
couldn't
the
help but
clamshell,
sigh.
she took
It's
out
a
a
pity
few
that our
herbs
Sioux
picked from
family
the
is
mountain from her
engaged in the
arms
cloth
and
business
fell into meditation.
Otherwise,
These
these
herbs
herbs make
were
a
all
lot of money
used
to
easily.
improve her body. Only
But
then
she
did
also
the
knew
old
that she was
steward's
weak.
blockhead realized
Although she
that the
controlled the
patriarch
amount
had
well,
such intentions.
she estimated
No
that
wonder
she
Lee would
would
have a fever
that
for
bastard
several days.
agreed so
Huff,
readily.
huff. After
Master,
thinking for a while,
the recipe,
Sue
take
Lee
the
felt
ink,
a
paper,
burning
and
sensation in her
inkstone and go to
throat,
area,
which was a sign of
Sue
fever.
Wanley said,
The cold wind for 4
it's
hours
a matter
was
of
not
great
in vain.
importance.
Not to mention
well,
that she was so weak.
take her her to the study.
She directly
and find
stuffed
a
the herbs
suitable
into her
excuse
mouth
and
in
chewed
the small courtyard.
Then she wrapped herself in the
was
quilt
sitting
and
lay
basking
down
in the
again.
sun.
Her eyes were
tonic
slightly
worked,
closed,
and she fell asleep
and she
soon.
seemed to be asleep.
After an unknown
Suddenly,
period of time,
her ears moved
second miss,
slightly,
second
and she
miss,
opened her
an
eyes.
anxious and
She
depressed
gently
voice
covered the dictionary
sounded
of
in
the
her ears.
hand on the
Sully
stone
opened her
table
eyes
with one hand.
reluctantly. After that,
She felt that
the
her
old
body
butler pushed the
was in a
door
stove,
and came in, and even
Seeing
her
the
brain
second
was
miss
about
with
to
a
be
red
burned.
face.
Her
He
vision
couldn't help
blurred
but
for a
smile,
moment, and
Second
finally
miss.
became clear.
Master wants
She
you to
looked
go
up
to
at
the
the
study.
old woman.
Sully
who was
seemed to
holding
be
her in her
scared and
arms.
stayed in place.
It was Mammy
The
Lee.
butler continued
My
to
poor
explain
second young
helplessly
mistress Mammy put her rough hands on
Su Li was suddenly enlightened.
Tears had already
She stood up
her eyes
and tidied her cotton
She knew
padded
clearly
clothes.
what the sudden fever
She
meant.
trotted into the kitchen
Nanny,
with her long
Nanny,
hair swaying.
a faint voice
She was
sounded.
very lively.
Mammy was
The
shocked
old butler
and
shook
immediately
his head
said with
and
surprising
suddenly his
joy,
eyes fell on the
"Second
delicate
miss,
book on the stone
are you
table.
awake?"
His
Hearing
face
Su
immediately
Li's
darkened.
unique name,
Grandpa
Mammy
Butler,
Lee's
I'm
heart
ready.
ached.
Su Li
but her
came out with
face
the basket
became
in
more
her
gentle.
arms. She bowed
The
her
old
head and
butler
touched Su
asked
Li's face.
expressionlessly,
She whispered,
"Second miss,
miss, it's me.
Where did you steal
I'm Nanny
this
Lee.
book?"
Did you
Su Li
steal
frowned
it from the first
painfully
master's study?
and said pitifully,
Su Li trembled slightly,
"Nanny Lee,
and her
I want to
face
see my
turned
eldest
pale.
brother." Tears
I didn't
welled up in her
steal the
eyes,
night
and
luminescent
she
pearl.
said with a crying
I want to see my
tone,
eldest brother.
"Grandpa Butler,
After
I
saying
have never
this,
stolen anything."
Su Li tilted her
I
head
didn't steal
and fell
the
asleep
luminous
again.
pearl. She was not
The old
pretending,
butler sighed,
but the
he did not
efficacy of
expect
the medicine
that his words
was
would
too
remind the
fierce.
second miss
Even
of
with her
previous
well-tempered
miserable
willpower
experience.
She couldn't resist.
He could not
it.
help but soften
Seeing
his
Su
tone.
Li fell asleep again,
Tell Grandpa
Mammy
Butler,
Lee suddenly
where did this
panicked.
book come from?
She called Su
Big
Li
brother
several times,
gave it to me, but Su Li didn't
Su
wake
Li
up.
blinked,
Her
and
heart
eyes
trembled,
were bright,
and she
eldest
slightly
brother said,
loosened
that
her
he was leaving.
hands.
"Give me
After
the
a
book
moment
to remember him."
Mammy Lee's
When the old
eyes
housekeeper
became
heard
firm.
this,
She
he
gently
immediately
stroked
sighed
Su Li's hot
deeply.
forehead.
The
and
phrase
whispered,
"seeing something
"Second miss,
reminds me of
I'm going to
someone"
find my
was
eldest brother for
definitely
you
said
now."
by eldest young
Mammy
master.
Lee had no time
Second
to pack
miss
anything.
was illiterate.
She turned
So it
around
was impossible
and
for
ran
her
to the
to
Su
say
family's
such
mansion.
cultured words.
It was getting late. Grandpa
Su
Butler
Qingtan
has
put down the
misunderstood
long
you.
sword in his hand.
The old
and
butler
took a deep
gently
breath.
touched Su
When he was about
Li's
to go
head
back
for
to his
fear of
room to
scaring
read
her
again,
there was a
but
noise
don't let the Lord
outside
see
the
it.
courtyard. He will be unhappy. I really have something important to report to the first
Su Li
master.
nodded.
I'll
and
leave
then
after
said
saying a
dejectedly,
few words.
"Unfortunately,
How dare you?
I don't know any
The
of
first
the paintings
master's
on it,
yard is
and I don't
not
know
a
why you
place
gave it to
for a
me."
low-class
When the
mammy
old
like
butler
you.
heard this,
The guard's
he
stern
was
reprimand
stunned and
made
revealed
Su
a
Qingtan
thoughtful
frown
expression.
slightly.
Did the
He
first
didn't like
young
the
master
domineering
hope
guards that the women
arranged by
folk
his
in his
mother?
family could read?
But he couldn't
At this
disobey
time,
his mother's order.
Su Li took out a
so he could
zongzi
only
from
turn
the
a blind
basket
eye and handed
He
it to
called
the
the
old
maid
butler.
and said, she
"Let
smirked
the
and
mammy
said,
in."
"Here
The
you
maid
are."
suddenly looked
Grandpa
embarrassed
Butler
and said,
hasn't eaten the
"Master,
zongzi made by
the madam
Ariel.
asked you to
The old
concentrate on your
butler
study.
came to his senses.
You can't, and
Am I
immediately
the master
pushed it away,
or are you the master?
saying,
How
"Su
can I eat
Qingtan
such
said
expensive
coldly,
things? How
Second
long
miss,
can it take to
keep it for
say
yourself.
one word?"
Let her
Su Li
in."
pursed her lips,
Seeing that the
and
master
forced
was
the
angry,
zongzi into
the
the
maid
old
didn't
butler's
dare
hands.
to disobey.
She whispered.
She quickly got up
"This is a
and
gift
went outside
that Arya
to let
secretly
Mammy Lee
left
in.
for you."
Mammy Lee got
Grandpa
the permission.
Butler has worked
Her
so
desperate
hard.
face
What's wrong with
immediately
eating a
showed
zongzi?
surprise.
The
She
old
stepped into
butler
the yard
did not
without
know
saying
whether to
anything.
laugh or cry.
"Mammy Lee, what's the matter?"
But he grinned.
Su
and put the
Qingtan
zongzi
saw
into
the
his
excited
arms.
Mammy Lee.
He had never
and asked
found
in
that the second
confusion.
miss was so
Mammy Lee was the
considerate to
wet
servants
nurse of the
before.
second sister.
He clearly
when she was a
scared her
child.
just now.
So he was also familiar.
But this little
with her.
girl did not care
Seeing
at all.
Su Qingtan's
The third miss
calm
ordered
expression,
him around.
Mammy
like a
Lee's
slave.
heart suddenly
Even if he
thumped
did it
and her
perfectly
face
every
turned
time,
pale.
she didn't
It
say
seemed
a
that the
good
first
word.
master
It
didn't
seemed
care
that he
about
had
the
to think
second miss
more about
as
the
much as she
second
thought.
miss
in the future.
But had come to
After
this,
secretly
and she
making
had
up his
no
mind,
other way.
the
She
old
could only
butler
kneel down and saw the
cried.
copybook on the stone table again.
Chapter
His
3.
eyes suddenly
Crash.
brightened.
Su
and a plan came
Qingtan's
to his
body
mind.
trembled
As
and
soon
he
as
couldn't
Su
believe it.
Li and
The
the
teacup
old
fell
butler
from his
left,
hand.
the
and
west
broke
courtyard
into
received the
pieces.
news of
She didn't even
notice that
Zhu
the
Yin
hot
sat
tea
nervously
splashed
at the
on
head
his
of the
hand.
bed.
The
with
maid
cold
quickly
sweat
picked
on
up the
her
handkerchief
forehead
to wipe
and panic in her eyes.
Su Qingtan shook
Is
it
it
off
possible
and
that the
grabbed
Lord
Mammy
found
Lee.
something?
He gnashed
Zhu
his
Yin
teeth
thought
and
about
said, and the
"Take
more
me
she
there."
thought about it,
Along the way,
the more frightened
Mammy
she
Lee's
felt.
hand was hurt
Except
by
for that
Su
matter.
Qingtan.
She could not
But she
think
was
of
very
any
calm.
other reason for
The
the
first
old
master
butler
still
to
cared
ask
about
Arya
the second
to go to the
Mississippi.
main
But
courtyard.
why didn't he
alone?
respond to the first
No, I
madam's
can't panic.
behavior?
If I
Didn't he
leave,
know?
what about Zipei?
At this time,
halfway
in the west
through
courtyard
packing,
of the Su house,
Zhu Yin gritted
in the
her teeth
exquisite and
went to the
luxurious
dressing
wing
table.
room.
She
Su
opened the secret
Zipei
compartment
sat
under
at
the
the
table,
and
her pretty
fumbled for a
face
moment.
was so
Then she took
fierce
out
that
a
the
white
maids
jade
around her
pendant.
kept silent. The jade was
In
warm
front of
to the
Su
touch,
Zipei,
pure and
there was a charcoal
flawless.
brazier that
even
had
an
been
idiot could
extinguished.
see that this
Whereas
jade
Mammy Lee
was extremely
Su Zipei
precious.
was so
the
angry
pattern on the
that her
jade
voice
pendant
changed.
was not
The
complete
charcoal little brazier in her room had never been extinguished to be the lower body of an animal. But when she came back today, she found that the room was very cold. But she did not know what it was. How could she? Julian stared at the jade pendant, stand and calm down. Mammy Lee had always been responsible. This jade pendant was exactly what she got. The chief made Chun immediately stood out. She had never seen such a precious jade. Mammy Lee often went to the Aria's family background. Secretly, must be extremely. She went out before dawn, but she also checked that there was no birthmark on the girl's body. Susie Pay's eyes changed slightly. She immediately sneered, got up, Chapter 13. In recent years, and said, "I have found that the origin of the jade pendant is mostly from Yunjin. Let's go. I have to hurry up. There's not a short distance. There's not much house to the hut. If Zipei Mammy Lee usually had to walk for 2 hours, but this time it took less than an hour. Would become the adoptive Tan was shocked to see the shabby hut that might collapse at any time. The second sister had been living as if she saw the beautiful future. What's going on? He clearly heard from his mother that although the second sister was driven out of the accumulated for many years, she just went to a distant relative's pawn shop in the town. When his father's anger subsided, the old butler wrote down a method of making zongzi. At that time, in detail, he was still angry because of what the second when he heard that a small zongzi. He didn't think that his mother would lie to him. With a bang, second daughter Su was really Tan's white exercise clothes were stained with a layer of dust. There was no restaurant. He always loved cleanliness, but he didn't know it. He rushed to the large amount of money Su area huddled like a stray cat. His heart was suddenly twisted, and he couldn't breathe. After Su Li finished the second sister was thinner than neatly arranged the She was almost unrecognizable. Then she saluted and left obediently. Wake up. The old butler put down the brush. Su Qingtan the paper to wait for the ink to dry. Su Li frowned, seeing that the master was in a daze. Instead, he hesitated for a moment and stretched out his head. The night luminescent. He said cautiously, "Eldest master, why don't you believe me? What do you think about letting Su Qingtan's heart tremble?" Su Huanli frowned subconsciously. Pain then he came to his sense. The subconscious eyebrows were immediately. Could it be that Yang Qin had wrongly? He opened his mouth and second younger sister. Nonsense. Without time to think about it. Let Area learn to read. Su Qingtan picked up Su Li, who was as the old butler was scolded, but he didn't panic. He turned back to say in a steady tone, "Mammy Li, master, go to the town to find a doctor since those things happened. I will bring my second sister fellows." No one remembers them. Even the government has set up half a blood stain in order to select talent from women to make contributions. His pupil shrank, and his right hand suddenly lifted the sleeves. Butler took a deep breath. His eyes were immediately filled with horror. Second Miss Su Li's arms were densely covered with blood stains. Maybe she's also a talent for reading. Many new blood stains. She also needs to learn to read to study and adhere to the linen clothes. If there is a female scholar or a female royal chef, the wounds were torn again, and dark red blood flowed to our ancestors. Su Qingtan didn't look at her left arm. You will make a great contribution. He exhaled heavily. Hearing the second half of the words, Mammy Li who Su did Huanli's expression burst of dense footsteps. He was very excited. Su Qingtan looked at Mammy, but the shadow of being cheated in the early years hesitating for a moment, he jumped out of the window. The old butler Mammy looked at the master's expression, and she heard the door of the hut was kicked open. Surrounded by four Mammies with the excuse of learning to read. Su Huanli's expression changed slightly, and he scolded, "You old guy, mistake? Are you really scheming against different words?" While immediately scared Su Huanli actually so much that her face forget it pale. In a blink of an eye, she hurriedly said, "Half of my body no choice. Since Area needs to learn to read, she would have frozen to death. Let her learn to read. Third tomorrow, please save her life for the sake of the blood relationship." Yes, master is wise. The old butler chuckled, wait for Mammy Li to finish her words. Su Huanli was helpless. She laughed crisply. This old guy was made more and more good at pretending to be second miss. Su Zipei stared at Su Li, who was in a coma on the bed, and became the Su family's housekeeper. Su Li he had never figured out this person's background. Mammy Li, he didn't even know his name. He only knew that his surname driven out of the family. For more than a decade, I am the second Mr. Li had never done hearing this crisp sound. Over time, Su Huanli let down his guard outside the hut, really regarded Butler Li and couldn't believe his eyes. The next day, how could the third Butler sister, Li quickly invited who had always been well-behaved, when Su Huanli saw such a rude thing, he was surprised and quickly greeted him. Just as he was about to rush in and ask, "Isn't this Dr. Chi? How did you find the time to visit my humble residence today?" Who had been pretending to be asleep, really brings light to my humble residence. She opened her eyes. Dr. Chi's medical skills were the person clearly and famous. Her body couldn't help but tremble slightly. Master Su, there was fear in her pure eyes. Dr. Chi smiled. She trembled and said, "Today I am here to be a sister." Butler Li added on the side, "What are you doing, Master?" The teachers in the school narrowed her eyes slightly and not only good at medical skills, but also very good at teaching. You are not obedient. Besides, how can you still call yourself the second miss of the Su family? It's not a joke that Dad drove you out of the family. Mr. Chi, it seems that you have forgotten the taste of the vine and go to see my daughter. Mammy Zhang. Dr. Chi nodded and walked in with a smile. Seeing Dr. Chi go away, when Mammy Li saw Su Huanli frowned, she almost immediately whispered. She scrambled to stand in front of Su Li, reliable, begged for mercy. Absolutely reliable. Please spare my life. With an exaggerated expression on his face. If you beat her again quickly, I heard from those teachers that Dr. Chi taught many high-ranking officials. Mammy Zhang got the signal. And now I am old, and Mammy Li immediately closed her eyes. I just want to try my luck. Enough. I didn't expect that Su Li really invited this great master and left the protection. Su Huanli was overjoyed. She looked directly at Su Zipei. He quickly ordered and bring Qing Hao here. I have taken the blame. Teaching one is teaching, and paid the price of being driven also out of the family. The reward you still not willing to let me go. Let Dr. Zipei was young after all. She was a little confused and said coldly, "I understand. What are you talking about? Immediately, how could I steal the night luminescent pearl? After Su supported her tottering body and said in a hoarse voice, they walked to Su Lee's small courtyard. I happened to see his courtyard. You went to see Su was practicing the first hurdle and handed the night luminescent pearl to him at the Sana Bridge outside the town. At this time, Su Lee said the location outside the door shouted. Suzy Pei's face turned pale. Master and Dr. Chi are here. How could it be possible? Dr. Chi. There was no one around the Sanha Bridge that day. How did Su Area know? Suzy Pei squinted her eyes and rolled around a few times. The miracle-working doctor suddenly thought that his identity was well covered. So what if it's me? But Su Lee was the sinner of the one who was kept in the dark. No one in the Su family she had seen him with her own eyes in the military camp. Even my eldest brother will not believe you. He looked at her with pity. My eldest brother is only 16 and she was just one of the prostitutes in the army. There are still 2 years. It turned out that this person had been living in seclusion. This year is the last year for Cousin Yang. No wonder no one could find the best of both worlds. As soon as Su Lee went out of the room, the best of both worlds, eyes immediately, a light shout suddenly came from outside the door and quickly introduced. So, this is my daughter. You should stand up and accept the gratitude. Are you satisfied with her? Eldest brother. Chi Xian sudden voice to look at her for a moment. Suzy Pei nodded slightly, so much that her body trembled. Second Miss Su, when she recognized the owner of the voice, must be very intelligent. Her ruddy little face. I will stay to teach her for a few days. Eldest Su Wanli was very surprised. Why are you here? Quickly cupped his hands and said, Suzy Pei turned her head stiffly, Mr. Chi, and her lips trembled violently. I heard that the eldest son of your mansion is about to go standing at the provincial office. She wanted to faint directly. Chi Xianqing's eyes flashed, all her words. He smiled kindly. Get out of here. Why not? It's really a blessing for sleeves to be instructed by great strength. Su Wanli quickly sent someone to invite him. He pointed at Chi Xianqing, waved his sleeves, and every word he said was like a heavy hammer knocking on her heart. It's unreasonable for the master. You get out of here too. I don't have a traitorous sister like teachers were very eccentric. Suzy Pei was already Su Wanli didn't think it was strange. If this matter was reported by immediately obeyed him and let the butler lead the way. Second sister was the best example. Her eyes flashed with thoughts only mother can save me now. As soon as she thought of her mother, she didn't follow them. Suzy Pei, unfortunately, immediately the people walking in front she ran away with the wet didn't see this scene. In the study, Su Qingtan felt strange when he saw Dr. Chi. Anger subsided. He was still thinking of ways to ask him, and his eyes were as gentle as spring water. He didn't expect that Dr. Chi came by himself. Big brother. Since Su Wanli screamed blankly, the butler and I won't bother. Her tears fell down. Su Wanli left consciously and even took the girl out. Even her previous first master Su, Big Brother, had treated her extremely well. Chi Xianqing came straight to the point. Big Brother's Su Qingtan nodded slightly because of her disfigurement. I am very happy that you been exposed in the second sister is in a bad situation. How could you have known about her previous life? Please help her. However, his eldest brother was stroked his white beard and said, I'm already the teacher of your Su family, and I will come to see her. He was also a little blind. If you didn't protect the little girl from any harm under Suzy Pei's manipulation, I would have taken her to Yun's life. He became a puppet who did all kinds of bad things. Body trembled slightly. In this life, and his eyes it was clear that things would change. That was the foot of the emperor. Su Qingtan not everyone quickly hugged Su Li. He recommended that if he could reach the end of the test, almost drowned he could enter Yun. He coaxed Su Li like a child. Chi Xianqing saw that to rent a carriage and rushed directly. So he continued to laugh and said, I am Su Li had too many injuries, and he couldn't wait area is just right. You just need to know that area first young master of the Su family and has a promising future. The old doctor hesitated. Su Qingtan's eyes were suddenly became nervous. Dr. Chi bowed deeply. You can say it directly. Second no matter how many precious medicinal materials are needed. You didn't even tell me when you were bullied. Dr. Chi shook his head. I'm not qualified to be your big brother. It's not a big deal that she is ill. I am indebted to you for allowing her to study medicine. She needs to have a good rest. Please take good care of second sister. Can't do heavy work and let her live happily. The injuries on her body. Chi Xianqing nodded and agreed. He thought in his heart, puzzled. This child's eyes couldn't help but say, he values young master and righteousness. Don't blame me for speaking bluntly. His career would be extraordinary, and he would definitely be able to go far. Some injuries have like even been left a few years ago. Who only cares about remember correctly and fortune. Your sister's only 14 years old this year. However, Su Qingtan's face became a little ugly. Was not only in a deep voice, but also the supreme. Don't worry. Chi Xianqing curled his lips get hurt again and smiled. Dr. Chi stroked his beard in the next 3 days. Chi Xianqing came to teach. Then I will believe child to read this time and write on time. Remember to let her have a good rest. If it doesn't hide her skills, you can send her and learn quickly. Dr. Chi obviously didn't believe was overjoyed. Su Qingtan didn't want to test deep Su Li for a few more days. He turned around and settled the identity and left the Bai Chao with Su Huan without looking back. On the fourth day, although he was puzzled about the excessive small school temporarily arranged, he had no face to stay here. How? Dr. Chi stood at the door, a famous teacher, and shook his head. Our Su family hired him. This woman was born with beautiful bones. You don't go to school in the future, but it was introverted. You can study with your second sister. It was hard to see it if
Don't
he
let me
didn't
down.
see it with his own eyes.
When Su Qinghao
with
was
this kind of
sent to the
bone,
school,
she was a
Su
good
warmly
candidate
told his
to
little son
inherit
his
his
mantle.
mantle.
Got it, Dad.
Unfortunately,
Su
the Su
Qinghao
family was
replied
powerful
crisply,
in the town,
but he was happy
and he didn't
in
want
his
to break
heart.
the current life.
It was so good to have this matter could only be put off.
with him in the
The
future.
Su house was only a few miles away from the Bai Chao Tang.
In just a few
looked at
minutes,
Su
Su
Qinghao,
Qingtan returned
who was
home
sitting in the
with
seat
Su
and
Li,
frowned slightly.
who was sleeping
But when he saw
soundly
Su Li,
from
who
the
was
main
reviewing
door,
her homework
Mammy Li
next to
paid the
him,
car driver
he relaxed
and
his
followed
eyebrows.
them step by
Well,
step.
I will turn
After the
blind
fright,
eye.
just
I
now.
heard that there is another
She knew
daughter
that once
in
she
the
left
Su
the
family.
first master,
Maybe there will be
she
one
would
more in the
definitely
future.
be a punishment.
I will teach
worse than
others as
death.
usual. I will teach
Walking to
them
the west
inheritance in
Su
private.
Qingtan was
After
about to
making
go
up
in.
his mind,
Mammy Li
Qi
finally
Xianqing
couldn't help
opened the
whispering.
calligraphy book
First master
and continued to teach.
The second miss
2
doesn't
hours
live
later,
in the west
Qi
courtyard.
Xianqing collected the book and left. Su
Chapter
Qinghao
5.
couldn't help
Mammy
it.
Li sighed
He immediately
softly
stood up
and said,
and pulled
First
Su
young
Li
master
and said,
the
second
second
miss
sister,
has been living with
second
maids
sister,
in the backyard.
let's go to the martial
since she
arts
was a child.
field to play with the
Su
sand.
Qingtan's face
Su
became
didn't know
more
whether to
and
laugh
more
or
gloomy.
cry. How
She
many
said,
dirty
"You
things
go.
had his
I will
mother
be scolded
and
by my
second
father."
mother hidden from him all
Su
these
Qinghao
years?
ran out
Second mother was
disappointedly.
second
The eldest
sister's
brother would not be
biological
scolded
mother.
if he went
How could
there.
she bear to
Sure
let
enough,
second sister
was
live
different
such
from
a
the
hard
eldest
life?
brother.
No
After
wonder
cleaning up
second
the house,
sister had
Su Li
always
went
been
out with
thin.
the calligraphy
It
book.
turned out that
But
she found that
keep
Qi
up with nutrition.
Xianqing was
Does
still
my father know
standing at the
about
door,
these things?
as if waiting
I don't
for
know
her.
either. Was he going to
Su
show his
Qingtan
cards?
snorted and walked directly to the east courtyard with Su Li in his arms. Second
Chapter
sister will
15.
live in the east
Little
courtyard
girl,
from now
come with
on.
me.
Mammy
Qi
Li,
Xianqing
you don't
waved
need to
his
go back
hand
to the west
and was
courtyard.
slightly excited.
Just stay
After
and
few
take
days
care
of
of second
contact,
sister.
he had completely
Hearing
approved
these words,
Su Li.
Mammy
This
Li
little
was
girl
relieved
was simple
and said with
joy.
kind and affectionate,
Thank you. She was
First
also
young
very
master.
diligent. I will take
Not to
good care of
mention
the
her
second
qualifications
miss and help her recover.
He was truly an excellent
Su
candidate
Qingtan
to be a
nodded
disciple.
slightly.
Even
He
if
knew
Mammy
Mammy
Li
was
was
kind.
slightly older,
He could rest
could be
assured if she took
completely
care of
ignored.
second
When they
sister
walked to a
herself.
secluded place,
There were many empty
Qi
rooms in the
Xianqing
east courtyard.
immediately said,
Su Qingtan
"Little girl,
sent
do you know
Mammy
who
Li
I
to
am?"
clean up the room.
Su Li
and
blinked
walked to his
and
room
replied
with
cleverly,
Su Li in his
"I know.
arms. You're a
Looking at the
famous
girl in
doctor
his
and
arms
teacher in
curling
town.
up like a kitten.
Ha!
He
Qi
immediately
Xianqing
had a
laughed
deep
heartily
love in his
and
heart,
said,
and
"You are not only
unconsciously
famous
quickened
in the
his
town.
pace.
You will
But
know
before
that
he
the
stepped
name
into
of
the
Qi
courtyard,
Xianqing
he was stopped
is
by a
not
shout
only
behind
famous
him.
into Han country.
Qingtan, wait
Are
for
there other
first mother.
countries besides
Su
the Han
Qingtan
country?
turned around
Su Li tilted
and
her
saw
head
the first
and
mother
asked.
in a mink
Her focus was
cloak hurrying
obviously
to him.
different.
Behind
Qi
her,
Xianqing looked
Su
stiff and
Zipei
said with a
followed
wry smile,
silently with
"Of
red
course.
eyes. When you grow
Seeing
up,
Su Li
you can see
in
more
Su
sceneries when
Qingtan's
you go
arms.
out."
The first
Then,
mother's
Qi
eyes
Xianqing
changed
looked
slightly.
refreshed and
She
said,
immediately
"Little
pretended
girl,
to be distressed.
if you want to be
and
outstanding,
said,
there's a
Qingtan,
better way than
listen to
learning
first
literature.
mother. It's
That
all
is
a
to practice
misunderstanding.
Xiangong.
Let me take area
After
back
that,
to the
there was
west
silence
courtyard.
in the air.
Misunderstanding.
The old man,
Su
and the young
Qingtan's
girl
eyes
stared at
flashed
each other.
with anger.
After a
and
while,
he said coldly,
Su Li asked
"First
curiously,
mother, Master,
"You'd
what
better
is
explain
Xingong?"
it to father."
Qi Xianqing
Second sister
smiled
is weak
bitterly.
and can't
He
stand
forgot
cold.
that he was facing
I'll go
a
into the
little
room
girl
first.
who had no knowledge.
After that,
People who
he
practice
directly
martial
turned
arts would
and
faint
went into
with
the room
excitement
without
when they
waiting
heard
for
the
the
word
first mother's
Xiangong.
response.
But this little girl
Madame
didn't
Zhu
respond
came
at
to her
all.
senses, and her
Xiangong is a
face
practice
suddenly
system beyond
turned
martial
red
arts.
with anger.
If you
Although
practice
Su
it to a high
Qingtan
level,
was the son
you
of the
could be
second
extraordinary.
branch. He was filial to her
let's talk
in
about it
daily
later.
life.
Are you
But
willing
now
to
he
worship
contradicted
me
her like
as your
this.
teacher?
Because of
Qi
that,
Xianqing looked at Su Li, who was confused.
"Mother, what should
and
I do?"
finally chose to ask
Hearing that
Su
Su
Li in another
Qingtan
way.
was going to tell her
"Is an
father,
area your student?"
Zipei was
Su Li was
so
still
anxious
confused
that she
and
burst
laughed
into
in her
tears.
heart.
This
Su
old guy
ma'am,
actually
she
wanted
was
her
very
to be his
upset.
successor.
She couldn't hold her
This is
temper
different.
and scolded
I
in a
have
low
many
voice.
students,
Useless
but there's
thing.
only one
You let
disciple.
slip such a small
That is
thing.
you.
Let's
Qi
talk about it when
Xianqing
we go
smiled
back.
like an old liar.
Su
and said,
Zipei pursed her
"As
lips,
long as you worship
feeling
me
wrong.
as your teacher,
She had never been
you will
scolded
not
by
be
her
bullied
mother
in the future.
since she was a child.
I will teach you everything
Thinking
I
of
know.
this,
She
when you
hated
grow up,
Su Li even
you can
more.
cure diseases.
Madame Zhu
and
took a
save
few
people.
glances at the
You
courtyard.
can do whatever
and
you
didn't
want.
hear anything.
Su Li's
She
eyes
immediately
left
became
with peace
bright.
of mind.
I do.
With
Qi
that wretched
Xianqing
girl's
wiped his
temperament.
cold sweat.
She should know
It
what
was
to
not
say
easy to accept this disciple. Su Qingtan, under the guidance, asked the maid to bathe and change clothes performed the ceremony of apprenticeship. Then he ordered the kitchen to boil the medicine and make some light dinner. Did not After care. Feeding the medicine and dinner by himself, Suli stood up. He left the bedroom. Qian looked at midnight with more kindness. Suli opened her eyes. He took out a booklet and saw that the light had been written was for a long time from She had occupied Big Brother's bed, spent 3 days to understand and memorize. Along the way, 3 days later, she was half awake. I will ask you how much you understand. She didn't really fall asleep. Suli took it her eldest and obediently said, according to the address, that although her fever didn't subside, she didn't feel that bad anymore. At this moment, in the dead of the night, she finally had the time to sort out her
suspected
thoughts
that if she was not there,
it was much easier to return to the Sue family.
Sully held the booklet in her
hand
in the previous
and narrowed her eyes.
In the
slightly.
previous life,
she had obtained the poison doctor's
sinner.
inheritance by
But
chance,
in this life,
and did
at
not
least
have
in
her
her
eldest brother's heart.
she would be a fool
She was not
if
a
she
sinner.
didn't worship a
As
master.
for others,
she didn't
moreover,
care.
She
The
also
Desu
wanted to
town,
see what kind
where
of
the Sue
mysterious
family was
skills
located
other
was
than
one
the
of the
poison
towns
scripture
under the
mysterious
jurisdiction
skills were like.
of Qinghe province.
Thinking of this,
Qinghe
she opened the
province
booklet.
was one of the 20
there were only
counties
4
of the
words on the
Dahan
first
dynasty.
page.
The Dahan
Ghost
dynasty
Valley
had a
meditation
vast
territory.
Then she opened
the emperor
general
ruled the
principle.
country well.
Sully suddenly
and there had been
widened
no
her
war for
almond-shaped
decades.
eyes.
Every year,
She was shocked for the first
satrap
time
of the 20
since her
counties
rebirth.
would recommend
Wasn't this the poison
talents
scripture?
to the imperial court.
Qi Xianqing
After
was from the
passing
same
the
school
selection
as her.
test in the capital,
Back to the small
they could be promoted to
courtyard.
nobility.
Sully didn't have dinner
and have a
and
promising
finished
reading the
future.
whole book.
This
until late at
unique
night.
talent
She took
selection
a deep
mechanism
breath
was the key
according
to
the
the
words of the
prosperity
poison
of the
scripture
Dahan
in her
dynasty.
mind. And her
People with
eyes
both
became
ability
clear.
and integrity
I see.
always dreamed
This mental
of
method of
becoming a young
Xiangong
talent
is
favored by
incomplete.
the satrap.
Only the first
Su
half
Qingtan,
is complete.
the eldest brother,
No wonder
and
Qi
Yang Wei,
Xianqing,
the cousin,
went to the dirty place
were
like the
this.
military brothel.
Last year,
Maybe
after
he got the
Sue
news of
family
the second
bribed
half of the
people,
poison scripture.
Su Qingtan was on the recommendation list of the
Unfortunately,
satrap.
she got the
which was a
second
sure
half
thing.
of the poison
But
scripture.
they didn't expect that
in the
Su
previous
Zipe
life,
stole
Qi
the most
Xianqing
precious
did
treasure
not
of the
see
Su
the
family,
complete poison
the
scripture
night luminescent
until he died.
pearl.
No
Gave it
wonder
to
it
the
is
county
very
magistrate,
difficult for me to
Li
practice.
Shanbao. I thought the
who
first
liked
hurdle of
jewelry.
Xiangong was
Besides,
the 6th hurdle.
she gave it to
Su
Li
looked
Shanbao
strange.
in the name of Yang
It was
Wei,
impossible to
who was
practice
a relative
the
of the
6th
Su
hurdle of
family.
Xiangong.
Then,
directly,
the county
by
magistrate
skipping
misunderstood
the 5th hurdle.
and thought
But
that
she
the Su
succeeded in
family
both her
bribed the
previous
people for
life
Yang Wei.
and this life.
So he
Did
directly
Qi
recommended
Xianqing see
Yang Wei
something
to the provincial
Sully shook her
office.
head when the
And
recommendation
temporarily
result came
suppressed her
out.
doubts.
The Su
Then she
family knew that
carefully
they made
studied
a
the
big
book in
mistake
front of the oil
and
lamp.
wanted to fall out.
It
with
was
the Yang
inevitable
family.
that there would be
At that
problems
time,
with the
Su
incomplete
Zipe
mental
suddenly
method.
stood out. Now that
And
she had
said that she saw
completed
Su
the
area
14th
give the
hurdle
night
of
luminescent
Ghost Valley
pearl
meditation
to Yang
direction.
Wei with her own
She decided
eyes.
to practice
She hinted
from
to the
first
Su
hurdle
family
to
that
be on the
Su
safe
area
side.
secretly
In the
loved
previous
Yang Wei.
life,
So she did
practiced
such
to
a
the
stupid
7th hurdle.
Although
Needless
she
to
was
say,
possessed by the devil,
Su area
she
wasted
had
half
rich
of the property of the
experience.
Su family.
It was only a matter of
and
time
ruined the
for her
future of
to
the eldest
practice
brother
the
for
first
1 year.
5 hurdles.
She immediately
of the perfect
became the
practice
biggest
method.
sinner of
A
the
month
Su
passed.
family.
In the previous
Qingtan
life,
left home for the county
Su Li
town.
was kept in the dark.
second madam was reluctant to let
Later,
him go.
she
She
knew
cried
that
for a
it was
while
Su
and
Zipe
came out
who
after a
stole
few
it.
days.
The truth of the
Sully
matter
learned
was
very
also
fast.
told by Su
She had
Zipe
recognized
in a boastful
all
tone.
the characters
today, and
she
even wanted to
memorized
act
a
pitiful
lot of
and
rare
let the
characters.
eldest brother take
She
her
began
back.
to read poems
After all,
and books
only
under
when
the
she
guidance
returned to the
of
Su
Qi
family
Xianqing.
could she
Her
continue the road of
Xiangong
revenge.
made rapid progress.
But she didn't expect that
she had
Su
practiced to the
Zipe
second
would
hurdle,
suddenly appear.
but she showed that
and
she
she
had
didn't
just
expect that
practiced to the
Su
first
Zipe
hurdle.
would be so
Even
cooperative.
so, Qi
Su
Xianqing's
Li's
eyes
eyes
still
were
gloomy
shocked
and
and
cold.
murmured.
No one
She
knew
is
what she was
born with
thinking.
beautiful bones.
She is really extraordinary.
Chapter 6.
The next morning, it
Su
took me half a
Qingtan
year
came
to the main
practice
courtyard.
to the first
Before entering the
hurdle.
door,
When
Su
Su
Li
Li
was trying to
father,
advance to
the
the first
third
mother
hurdle of
and the
Xiangong,
second mother
Zhu
enjoying
Yan
breakfast.
finally came back.
The first madam,
What? Su Zhu,
how is it possible
saw
that
him
the
coming,
Lord let
coughed
Arya
softly,
learn to
and
read?
smiled kindly.
Tan, come and sit down. Today I specially ordered the kitchen to cook
Chapter
bird's nest
16.
porridge. Didn't the Lord
The second madam
always
was a little
dislike the
confused.
women folk in the family?
Her son
to be
never
literate?
came to the main
Why did he
courtyard
suddenly
for
let
breakfast?
Arya be literate?
How did Zhu Yan
and
know that her
especially
son
hired
would
a
come
teacher
today?
for her? Su
This
Qingtan
was
snorted and
simply
sat down,
unreasonable,
saying in a deep
The second
voice,
miss is
"Father,
smart
today
and can read
I come.
quickly.
Your first
The Lord
mother
has
has already
always
told me why
praised
you
her.
come. It is said
Su
that the
Huan
first
put
madam
down
has
the
a good
bowl and
daughter.
chopsticks.
Her personal
looked up
nanny
and
showed a
observed
pair
her
of
majestic
expression
eyes
and congratulated
and
her.
interrupted.
Although the
This
first
matter
madam
should
didn't
not
like
be
the second miss
publicized.
before. Just let Arya
Now
come
the second
back.
miss was
I have
so
punished
favored by the
Zipe
Lord
to close the
first
door.
madam's
That's
attitude
it.
should change.
His father's conclusion
She looked down
made
and saw
Su
Zhu Yan's
Qingtan's
face
was
livid.
full of
Zhu Yan was
disbelief.
so scared that
Even
she
if the
was
second
stiff
sister comes
instantly
back
and open
she
her
will be
mouth.
accused of
She
being
didn't know
a
what she
traitor.
said wrong.
How can she
It seems that the
face
Lord
others
didn't
in the
find that
future?
Arya
She has
is a
done nothing
bastard.
wrong.
Zhu
Yan
Yan
was relieved. Su Qingtan's words
slowly
became
combed her
more
hair.
and
more serious. Her face in the bronze
and Sue
mirror
Wanley
was
also
also
shaken.
This time,
The first mother saw
she spent a
something
lot of
wrong
money
and
but
immediately
she still
interrupted.
failed to find out the origin
Pan,
of the jade
you can't
pendant.
say that.
The original
If your
shop
third sister
that made the
is
jade
also
pendant
involved,
had long
how can
been
you
gone.
find her in the future?
Nobody knew
Besides,
where it went.
this
If
matter
she wanted
has
to find
passed
out
for
the
more than a
origin of
month.
the jade pendant,
The storm has
her
already
money was
subsided.
still too little.
Maybe others have
However,
forgotten it. How did
if
the
we make
wicked
waves
girl
again,
persuade the
our
Lord?
Sioux family
I
will be a
persuaded
joke
him
again.
countless times.
Suju
but he
poked
didn't
the sore
listen.
spot.
He could
of
only let
Sue
Zipe
Huanli,
learn to read
and the softness in her
secretly.
eyes
Zipe
immediately
was like this.
became hard again.
She
What
shouted to
qualification
Su
does she have to
Chintan.
sit in the school?
There's no need to
and
discuss
read?
it now.
Your
Correct.
first mother
The comb
is
was broken
Aria's
into two
biological
pieces.
mother.
The mammy
She
was
doesn't mind.
frightened and
Why do you
breathed
still meddle in it?
lightly. Why was the
Su
first
Chintan
madam so
only
angry?
felt a strong
Where is
anger in his
Zipe?
heart. He looked at the
madam,
first mother's
the third miss
friendly
will be
smile
confined
and
for
couldn't
4
help
months
but
tomorrow.
satirize.
Zhu gritted her
Everyone
teeth,
knows that the
and
first
her
mother
heart
was
in
the
a mess.
biological mother.
Why
of
was
the
everything
second
not
sister.
going well recently?
Those who don't know might think
against
that the
her.
second
At
sister
night,
is
Zhu
picked up
Yan
from
was
the
so
garbage heap.
angry that she
The
didn't
first
eat
madam's
or sleep.
face changed
She immediately
dramatically.
ordered someone
How
to open
dare
the
you?
door
Su
and
Huanli
release
patted
Su
the table,
Zipei,
and the
in
porridge
next
was
morning.
shaken out.
I am
He
suffocated.
said angrily,
"Where's Su?
You come
Area?
to offend the
I'm going
elders
to kill
in the
her."
early morning.
Su
Is this
Zipei's
how you
hair
use your books?
was disheveled like a
Master,
madwoman.
he didn't mean
She
it.
didn't know where to
He
vent
is
her
angry
anger
because
after
he
being
failed the
confined
recommendation
for 4 months.
Second Madam
Zhu
Su
Yan
Shui
saw her
who was
daughter's
watching from the
appearance
side
and trembled
quickly
with
stood
anger.
up and
She
softly
shouted,
advised,
"Mammy, help her dress up.
apologize to your father.
Don't you feel ashamed?"
Hearing his mother's
"Mother,
words,
you are
Su
here.
Qingtan
Why
took
didn't you
a
come to
deep
see me
breath,
for a month?"
bowed his head and
Su
said,
Zipei's
"Dad,
vigor immediately
sorry."
weakened.
However,
when she saw her mother.
regarding second
she
sister's
burst into
matter,
tears.
I hope that
Zhu
father
Yan
will
sighed
compensate
and
her.
grabbed her daughter's
Su
hand
Huanli
to go
swung
back
his
to the room.
sleeves heavily.
She whispered,
Hearing second
"I did it for
Madam
you.
mention the
If it is
recommendation,
successful,
his
you may
partiality
even
to
marry the
first
emperor."
madam
Suddenly,
Zhu Yan
decreased
revealed
a
a
lot.
little. He
Su
nodded
Zipei
and said,
widened her eyes
before
and
Area
stopped
recovers,
crying.
She will
asked,
stay in your
"Really?
place to
Of course it's
recuperate."
true. Hurry up and
He
dress
turned
up.
around.
We're going to
and
see your
reminded
father later."
Su Qingtan,
When she was
who
dressing
standing
up,
still,
Su
hurry up
Zipei,
and thank your
who had
father.
been isolated from
Thank
the
you,
news for
father.
4 months,
Su Qingtan
finally
knew
learned
that
that
he
he
had
had
to
to
settle
settle
for
for
the
the
next
gotten
best
father's
thing.
permission
So he
to learn
bowed
to
to
read
the first
openly.
madam in a hurry.
"I went out to look for you.
The matter was
But I
settled
don't know
before
who
the
took
first
advantage of
madam
me,"
could object.
but it doesn't matter.
When second Foreign Shui Shi heard this,
Since
an
Area
imperceptible
can learn,
smile
you can
flashed
definitely
in her
sit in the
eyes.
classroom.
Although
You don't
first
have to
Foreign
sneak
Zhu
around.
Shi still
Pearl,
had a smile
you're
on
much
her
smarter
face.
than Area.
Her expression
Zhu
had
Yan
obviously
comforted him
stiffened.
softly.
In the past,
Su Area was
she
a
was
maid
very
who did
respectful
rough
to
work.
Lady Cui
Zipei
and did
was
not
carefully
dare to
trained
act
by her.
rashly since
She
was
did
a
not
child.
expect that
In
she
the
would
future,
suddenly launch
she
an
would
attack today.
definitely become a
For her,
phoenix.
Area
second
was like a
sister,
sharp thorn in her
how could she
heart.
be worthy
If
of
she was
sitting
not
in the same
removed,
classroom as
she would
me?
not feel
What a
at
bully.
ease.
Su
Area
Zipei's
was really
eyes
picked
turned
up
red
by
again.
herself. She felt so
That wicked
wronged.
girl should cause
I know
me
I don't
so
deserve
much
it,
trouble.
but your father is
Viciousness flashed
Zhu Yan
through
looked at
Lady
Su
Zhu's
Zipei,
eyes
who was dressed
after
up
Su
and nodded with
Qingtan came
satisfaction.
back.
He stood
She
in front of
said,
the bedroom. "Let's go
He
and
was
reason
so
with your
ashamed that
father."
he did not dare to go
Su
in for a
Huanli was
while.
busy checking
Is it
the
eldest
accounts
brother?
of the silk shop.
A soft and
Suddenly,
timid voice
the voice
came
of the
from
old
room.
butler
Su
came from
Qingtan's
outside.
heart ached.
"Master,"
but he restored
the
a
first
peaceful
madam
smile
and the
on his
third
face.
miss are here. He pushed the
Su
door
Huanli
and
stopped
walked in.
writing and
He asked
twisted his
loudly,
eyebrows.
"Second
Today
sister,
was 4 months
did you have
old.
a good rest today?"
Zipei should
"I
come
brought
out.
you bird's nest porridge."
Master,
I brought a
coming
lot of
in
money back
and
to my
seeing the
parents'
scene
home.
in the room.
It can almost make up
Su
for the gap in
Qingtan
the
was
silk
shocked
shop.
to see
Zhu Yan's
Su Li
first sentence
struggling
after
to get out
entering
of
the
bed.
door
He
was to
quickly
take
put down the
advantage
food box
of Su
and
Huanli.
rushed to the bed.
When
to
Su
support
Huanli heard that
Su
the
Li.
money was
What are you
in
doing?
place,
Lie down
he didn't want to
quickly.
blame her anymore. "I'm going to chop
When he saw
firewood
Su
and fetch
Zipei,
water." Who
Su
was
Li
dignified,
blinked with puzzlement,
virtuous,
flashing her
and had a
eyes.
delicate
If I don't
face.
chop firewood,
Holding Zhu Yan's
Mammy
little
Zhang will
hand,
beat me.
his anger
Su
disappeared.
Qingtan's eyebrows
"Forget it.
shook violently.
Let's forget about
and
the
he
past."
said softly,
Su Huanli changed
"You don't
his
need to
seat
chop
and sat
firewood
down.
or fetch water
The old
here.
butler made tea.
The only thing you
and
need to
handed
do
it to him.
is to lie down.
You just came
and
back
get
from your
well
parents'
as
home.
soon as possible.
Why are you so anxious
Oh.
to see me?"
Su Li tilted her
Father,
head,
and her dark
I also want to be
eyes
literate.
flashed with light.
Su
Then
Zipei
she
lowered her
shrank
head
into the warm
and
quilt.
mumbled.
Her
Su
little face
Qingtan
was
couldn't
red,
help
which
but
was
laugh.
cute. He touched
Master,
Su
you
Li's
see,
smooth forehead
Area
and
also
asked,
begins to be
"Second
literate.
sister, you can't
Why
attend
didn't you
to
tell
one
eldest
thing
brother that
and
you were
lose
bullied?
sight of the other?"
Because Mammy
Otherwise,
Zhang didn't allow
only
me to say it.
Zipei can't
Su Li seemed to
read
think of
among the
something.
4 siblings.
She showed fear on her
Zipei
face
can't
and
raise her
said
head
no more.
in the future.
Su Qingtan
It turns out
couldn't
to
help
be
but
this
sigh
matter.
and said
Su
in his heart,
Huanli relaxed
"Silly
his
girl,
eyebrows and
you are
said,
so weak.
"I asked the
Why go to the
butler to
provincial
invite a
office?
teacher
How
and
can
set
I
up a
feel
school
at
in the
ease?"
East Courtyard.
He could see
If
that the
Zipei's
first
mother
mother
didn't like
just
Area
go
very
there.
much, but his
Don't
father
offend
was
the teacher.
busy, and the
Remember?
first mother had the final
Su
say. in
Zipei
the
saw
family.
that her father
After he
easily
left,
agreed.
the second
She was
sister
full of
would
joy
definitely
and
be
answered crisply
beaten and
"Yes,
bullied again.
father."
Somehow,
Zhu Yan also
Su
calmed down a
Qingtan
lot.
suddenly
It
thought
seemed
of
that the
Dr.
master
Qi
had figured
of the
out something
Baijiao Tang.
recently. Should he
was
really
not
send the
because of
second
area.
sister to the
After they
Bai
left,
Tang,
the
as
old
he said?
butler laughed
But how could this
and
be carried
whispered,
out
so that
Master,
father would
you are
relent.
really clever. In this way, no one will doubt
Chapter
the
7.
second Mississippi.
Eldest brother,
Su
second
Huanli was
sister.
expressionless.
Suddenly,
but fear
a childish
flashed in
call
his
came
eyes.
from outside
Since
the room.
Zhu Yin
Su
didn't
Li
go
was
back to her
slightly
parents'
stunned,
home,
and her
where did she
eyes
go?
were in a trance.
The first
for a
madam
moment.
was very careful.
Su Qingtan
I didn't
was not
find her
the only
specific
son of the Su
whereabouts.
family.
There was
Su
also
Huanli sighed
Su
deeply.
Qinghao.
He even
the fourth
needed to
son.
guard against his
Like
family.
Su Qingtan,
He was really tired.
Su Qinghao
Suddenly,
was the son of
Su
the second
Li's
mother.
pure and
She
brilliant
and
smile
Su
appeared in
Zipei
his
were
mind.
born by
The
the
depression
first
in
mother.
his heart
Because of
dissipated
this,
instantly.
although the
and
second
his face
mother's
showed a
background
trace
was
of
not as
relaxation.
powerful as the first mother's, her voice in the family was not low. Su Li only felt
Chapter
strange
17.
about Su Qinghao.
Outside the
In
school,
a previous life,
Su Zipei
since she
held
made
a
a calligraphy
mistake,
book,
she had
and
never
quietly
seen
poked
Su
her head
Qinghao
out the
again.
door. It was not
Three
until she
people
married a poor young
immediately
master that
appeared
she
in her
heard the
sight.
news that
They were the old
Su
teacher,
Qinghao
the
was
fourth
poisoned
brother,
and died
and a very
before he was
beautiful
15 years
stranger.
old.
The
The
murderer
murderer
had
clothes
never
made
been
by the
found
Rainbow
out.
Cloud
Second
Forging.
sister, who's Mrs.
I know
Shi?
you are wrong.
It's strange that the
Su
second
Qinghao,
sister is not
who
here.
looked very similar to
Su
Su
Zipei
Qingtan,
muttered. At this
ran in
time,
happily.
Qi
and said
Xianqing's
with a
reprimand
smile,
suddenly
"You wore a
came from
snow
the door.
white leather cap
Who
on his
was
head,
making noise outside.
and his handsome little
Come out.
face looked
Su
extremely
Zipei was so
adorable
scared
against
that her
it.
body trembled.
Compared with Su
The book in her
Qingtan,
arms
Su
fell to the
Qinghao
ground,
was less
and her
steady
figure was
and more
revealed.
lively. When Qi
After he
Xianqing
came,
saw
it
Su
seemed that the
Zipei,
whole room was
he breathed
full of
slowly
vitality.
and said in a
Su
deep
Qingtan
voice,
smiled
"Third Miss, the
helplessly
old butler has
and
already said that
explained,
you must
because
wait
you were
in
driven
school
out
at
of the
7
family.
o'clock
The
every
fourth
day.
brother kept
Today you
crying at
offended
home
the school and was
Don't
grounded
do it
by
again.
our father for
Find a
2
place
months.
to sit down.
Today he
Yes,
was released
sir.
in advance.
Su Zipei
so he must be
replied
crazy.
with grievance.
Oh, I
But
see.
she was angry.
Su
in
Li
her
looked
heart.
at Su
He was just a
Qinghao
poor
with her
scholar
bright
invited by her
eyes,
Su
which made the
family.
latter
He dared to be
quite
fierce to her.
uncomfortable.
She must
Well,
tell her mother
your
later
second sister
and let her mother
needs to
help her
rest.
to get revenge.
Go out and play.
Qi
Su
Xianqing
Qingtan
didn't care
said.
whether Su
Su
Zipei
Qinghao
had learned all the
immediately
words
became
or not.
excited and said,
He asked her to
"Then I will
recite
go to the
poems
martial
at the
arts
beginning.
field to wait for
She
you."
made several
Hurry up.
mistakes and was
After
beaten on the
Su
hand.
Qinghao left,
But Su Li didn't make
Su
any
Qingtan
mistakes.
hesitated for a
Su
moment
Zipei
and braced
was
himself
more
to
angry,
say,
but she
"Second
didn't
sister,
dare to show it.
Our father
She
wants
still
to
remembered
focus
her
on the
father's
overall
advice.
situation
So
and
the
does
class
not want
passed.
to announce the
At
truth
noon,
to the public."
Qi
For this
Xianqing got
matter,
up and left. I will give you some
the master of the
compensation
martial
at
arts
most.
club is
I am
still
useless.
waiting for me.
Do you blame
It's
me?
too late.
It was
Su
undoubtedly
Qinghao
extremely
ran away
unfair
anxiously.
to the second
Su
sister
Zipei opened her
to deal
mouth
with it
in
but
this
didn't
way.
say anything.
Su Qingtan
She looked
looked
back
at Su Li
and saw that the
anxiously
beautiful
and was
girl
ready to
whose
bear
skin was
Su
fairer than
Li's
hers
crying.
packing up the books.
However,
a
Su
friendly
Li just
smile
nodded
appeared on Su
calmly with a
Zipei's
peaceful
face,
and
and she
simple
said
smile on
softly,
her face.
"Don't worry. Aren't you
My
angry?
name is Su
Su
Zipei.
Qingtan.
What's the
couldn't
name of
help
the
clenching
beautiful
his
sister?
fists. Have you
The
ever
second
seen my
sister's
second
reaction
sister?
would only
She's the
make
one
him
who wears
feel
linen
more
clothes
guilty
and looks
Su
dark
shook her
and
head
thin.
slightly.
Third sister.
Why should I be angry?
The teacher is
As
still
long
waiting
as you
for me
believe
outside.
me,
I
I will
won't
be
talk
very
with you
happy.
anymore. In the
Su Li
future,
turned her head
you wouldn't
and
have to be
chuckled.
beaten. She
Or
left
word.
lightly. It's all
Su
thanks to
Zipei
Big
sat
Brother's hard
stupidly
work.
in the same
Big
place
Brother's amazing
and didn't even know how to
Her
speak
soft
for a
voice
while.
melted
Mother,
Su Qingtan's
oh no,
heart.
Area.
He didn't expect
As soon as she
that his
returned to the
second
west
sister would
courtyard,
comfort him
Su
instead of crying.
Zipei pushed the door
She was the
of
one who
first
was hurt
madam
the most.
in a panic.
He must have been
The first
blind
madam
to
was
judge a book by
embroidering,
its cover.
and her finger was
Although
almost
third
pricked
younger
by
sister
Su
looked delicate
Zipei's
and
sudden
lovely.
scream.
She
She
let
was
out a
as
hiss
selfish as
and
first
put down
man.
the silk cloth.
How could she compare to
She raised
second
her
younger
head
sister
and said
kindness?
angrily, "How many times
At
have I
this
taught
moment,
you?
Su
Don't panic when
Qingtan's
something
desire to
happens.
protect
Do you look
Su
like a
Li
lady from a
instantly
noble
rose to the
family
extreme.
when you rush him
He
like
couldn't
this?"
bear to see
Such
Su
a pure little
Zipei
girl
curled her
get
lips
hurt anymore.
and said with grievance.
Su Li grinned,
but
and
Area
showed her
changed
teeth.
so
The
much
light
that I
reflected the
couldn't
cold
recognize her.
light. I almost
She was
thought
not
she was a
surprised
lady
by the
from a big
result of
family.
the Su family.
Mother,
Quickly
quickly
go
go
and
on
take a
me.
look.
Su
This
Zipei
was
was
a
a
rare
rare
commodity.
commodity. The doctor
Before
scalped
selling
her
was
at a high
slightly known.
price.
He
He
sit
couldn't
still
ruin her
after being
reputation.
touched. As for Su Area, who was
He
dark
immediately
and
put
ugly,
on his cloak.
her status
and
in
went
the
to the
Su
east
family
courtyard with his
was
people.
no different from
Since
that of a
Su
maid.
Qingtan
A maid
left home,
certainly did
few people
not
came
need
to
a
Su Li's
reputation.
courtyard.
In the next few
Only
months,
Qi
Su Li's
Xianqing
physical
occasionally
condition
came to
improved
tell her to
greatly
practice.
under the careful
After
care
lunch,
of Mammy Li.
Mammy Li made a
Su
pot of
Zipei
tea
was
was
put in
and put on a
confinement,
stone table in
and
the
first
courtyard
aunt
as
couldn't
usual.
even get in
Second
because of
Miss
Su
liked to
Qingtan's
bask in the
obstruction.
sun in the
Her
yard
life
while
was
drinking
quite
tea.
quiet and
Suddenly,
comfortable.
bang! Big Brother.
The door was
I want to learn
knocked
to read.
open, and
Su
Mammy
Li,
Li came out of the
who
kitchen.
could get out of bed and
When she
walk,
saw the first
came to
madam
the study
and others,
and said,
her face
Su
was as
Qingtan
pale
frowned
as
slightly
paper.
and was
She was in a
surprised.
cold sweat.
His
and
father
said,
believed
"Greetings,
that a woman's
first madam
virtue
and
is a
third
woman's lack of
Mississippi."
talent.
The
Almost
first
none of the
madam
women
was
in the Su
expressionless.
family could read.
Looking at the
It was
fragrant
impossible that his
scented tea
second
on the stone
sister
table
didn't know
She
that.
was more
Why did she
and
offend
more
his
unhappy.
father? Can you
She
tell me
sneered
why
and
you
said,
want to learn to
"Naughty
read?
girl, come out."
Su Li blinked
You
her
even
watery
drank
eyes
flower tea
and said,
You really
with
don't
admiration,
change.
"Because I
Where'd
want
you
to be a
steal it
person
from this
like
time?
Ms. Mammy Li was
Puff.
furious
serious
Su
and felt
Qingtan
wrong
couldn't help
for
laughing.
Su Li. You little
Why
girl,
did the first
Ms.
Madam
Gu,
treat second
Guyen
miss
was
as
a
a
household
thief?
name.
It was not
Pei
strange
was
that
the
his
villain.
second sister
But
knew
how
it.
could she contradict
Guyen was the
first
first
female
Madam
general
as a
of the
maid.
Han dynasty?
She could only bite the bullet.
She was
and
proficient
said,
in both
"First
literature
Madam,
and martial
second
arts.
miss is not in the
50
courtyard."
years ago,
Mr. Qi
she
just
and her
called her out.
husband,
I don't know when
Marshal
she'll come
Ling
back.
Jinglei, before
Made
she
great
finished
contributions
speaking,
on the
a
battlefield.
voice came from
They
behind
went
the first
deep into
madam.
the enemy's camp
Mother,
alone and
why are you
beheaded the
here?
commander.
Everyone
which
looked
established
established
the
and
victory.
saw Su
A
Li
few years
standing
later,
at the gate of the
Marshal
courtyard
Ling
with the
Jinglei
dictionary
died
of the
on the
Han in her
battlefield.
hand. And
Manually
Guyen
complained
personally took
secretly.
command of the army.
If second
Her
miss
fame
came back
scared
a
the
little
enemy's
later,
army
she
not
might
to
be
be
able
able
to
to
escape
escape.
the Han
The
dynasty.
first madam was
It was a
stunned
pity
and
that the
stared at
Ling
fair-skinned
family was full
and
of
luxuriously
loyalty,
dressed
but there was such a
person
waste
standing
with
at
a
the gate.
sigh.
She was
Su
confused for a
Qingtan
moment
looked at his sister
and then
with
realized
an
that it was
inexplicable
Su
look.
area.
If you want to learn,
It was Su area.
I will teach you.
They hadn't seen
But
each
this
other
matter
for a few
should be
months.
kept secret.
If father
she had
knows
become
it,
so
it will be
beautiful.
terrible. Even without
the night
makeup,
luminescent
her
pearl,
face
he
was
gradually
much better
realized
than Susie
that what his
Pace.
father said was
Mother,
not
why don't you
right.
speak? It was enough
When the
that
first
his
madam
second
heard the word
sister wanted
mother,
to learn to read.
she was so
Sully
disgusted
nodded
that she
immediately
wanted to vomit
and felt relieved.
Her mind was in a
In the
mess.
previous life,
She
under
tried
the
her
guidance
best
of her
to torture
disabled
Sue
husband,
Area
she
in
could
order
read
to
a
make her
small
look like
part of the
neither a
words.
human nor
So she
a
was
ghost,
lucky to get
so
the
that her
inheritance
relatives
of
couldn't
the poison
recognize
doctor
her.
in practice.
But now Sue Aria's
Unfortunately,
temperament was
because she
clearly
couldn't
more
read
noble
than
her
Susie
Xian
Pace.
Gong was possessed
As
by
long
the
as her
devil,
relatives were
and her
not
face was
fools,
covered with
they would
terrible
recognize her
pustules.
immediately.
But at that time,
it was all because of the
she
little
had lost
bastard
everything,
Su Qingtan,
so she didn't
who
care about the
intervened.
disfigurement.
Everything she
in this
had
life,
done
of course,
was
not.
in vain.
Area, have you recovered?
The East Courtyard
Chapter
is the
8.
place where the
There was a
men
sand
of the
table
Su
in the
family
study
live for setting up
Come back
troops.
to the West Courtyard.
The ink was
with me.
very expensive.
The first madam
Sully
didn't
couldn't
wait for
use
Su
it.
Lee's answer.
So Su Qingtan
asked the
used
mammy
the sand
to rush
table
into
to
the
teach her
room
how to write.
to pack up her clothes.
Su Qingtan
Mammy
was
couldn't
surprised to
stop
find
her.
that his second
Su Lee's
sister
clothes were
was
not
extremely
soft.
intelligent.
Soon,
She could understand
Mammy Zhang
the
came out
simple
with a small
characters
parcel
immediately
to
after
her.
he taught her once.
Su Lee opened it.
It took him
and
less
found
than
that the
2
silver
hours
was
to
gone.
teach her the basic
Even the
rhyme.
slightly more
Seeing
expensive
this,
silks were gone.
Su Qingtan
When she saw her
simply
only
asked
sackcloth
Su Lee
and
to
sackcloth.
teach herself
Let's
according
go.
to the basic copybook. One of them was reading at the table.
What are you waiting for?
And the other was writing in front of the sand table. It was very quiet in the study. The rustling sound
Chapter
did
18.
not disturb
Su Lee smiled
Su Qingtan's
and turned her
reading,
head into
but
a
made him
pitiful
more
look.
peaceful.
She
and more
obediently
efficient.
walked in the front.
In the following
just like
days,
before.
Zhu'er,
Mammy Lee
the
followed
maid who
her
had been
with
serving Su
trepidation.
Qingtan,
She kept looking
saw that
around,
Su Lee went to the
hoping to
study
meet
of the
the old
old
butler.
master every day.
Unfortunately, she was
She
so
didn't meet him on the
angry that
way
she
to the
stamped
West
her
Courtyard
feet
and
bang.
snorted. The wooden
How
door
dare
of
she
the
disturb
big
the
wing
master's
room
reading?
in the West Courtyard
I'll tell the
was
second
closed.
madam.
The
The
first
second
madam
turned
couldn't
around
sit
with no
still after
expression
receiving
and said lightly,
Zhu'er's words.
Mammy Lee.
She immediately
Thank you for
rushed
taking
to the
care of
East
Area
Courtyard.
these days.
Master,
Area will be
the
taken
second
care of
madam
by
comes
Mammy
to see
Zhang
you.
in the
The
West
maid
Courtyard.
outside the room
Mammy
passed
Zhang.
the message.
Give her some silver.
Su Lee
and let her
immediately
go.
erased the
If she doesn't
characters on
go,
the sand
beat
table
her and
drew
drag
a
her out.
big smiling
Cracks.
face.
The
At
thick
the
wooden
same
stick
time,
stood in front
she
of her.
hid the copybook
Mammy Lee
under
was
the
so
sand
scared
table.
that she trembled
Su
violently.
Qingtan secretly
Such a
praised.
big stick
When he
could
opened the
break her
door and
legs,
saw his
but she
mother,
didn't take the
he
silver
couldn't help but
and
step
still stood
aside
in
and
the same
asked,
place.
"Mother,
Mammy Zhang sneered
why are you here?"
and was about to smash
"I've just come
the
to have a
stick.
look."
At this
Ma'am,
time,
Su
Su
Lee's
Chui looked at her
voice
son,
came.
Mammy Lee, go away.
When she turned around
the farther
and
you
saw
go,
Su Lee
the
in the
better.
study,
Her
Su Lee
face
stood in the middle of
immediately
Mammy
became
Lee.
cold.
Her voice
She
was
said,
weak,
but
Area,
Mammy Lee felt
why are you
extremely
so
warm.
insensible?
She didn't know
Your
where the
eldest
strength
brother's
came from.
recommendation
She
is
suddenly
coming.
pushed
You
Mammy
need
Lee
to
away
concentrate on
and
reading.
hugged. Since
Su
you were in
Lee
good
tightly.
health, hurry
If
back
she
to the
left,
West Courtyard.
the last wish of the
Su Lee
first
came over
miss
cleverly.
would not be
Her
fulfilled.
big black eyes were
Mr.
full
Chi
of
will
innocence.
come soon.
She
You
gracefully
leave first.
saluted
Don't
and
get close to the
whispered,
Su house.
"Second mother,
Come back in
don't
2
be
or
angry.
3 days.
I'll leave now."
Mammy Lee suddenly
Ma'am.
heard an
Su Chui was
extremely
surprised.
cold voice.
She heard from maids
She was
around
stunned,
her that
and
her
Area
body became
was
stiff.
eccentric and
She was
didn't
shocked.
understand etiquette.
Was it
The
now? It
voice
seemed
of
that
the
the
second
fact
miss,
was very
but the second
inconsistent
miss
with
had
the rumor.
always been gentle.
Su
How
Qingtan
could she have
realized
such a cold
that Su
tone?
Lee had
She
disappeared.
was gently
at the door
pushed
of the
away
study.
by Su
He
Lee
couldn't help but
and left the
complain,
Su house in a
"Mother,
trance. Why did
her
you
mind
drive
was in a
the
mess.
second sister away?"
Only Su Lee's
She is
words were
very
extremely
obedient.
clear. She just placed
After
the sand
Mammy Lee
table
left
and doesn't talk.
Su Lee
My reading
breathed a
of
sigh
fact
of relief.
is better.
She immediately
Ma'am,
felt that her arms
Su Chui
were
became
empty.
serious. The
and
dictionary
said
of the
angrily,
hand was snatched
"Why?
by Susie.
You can't be careless
who
when
looked
you enter the
proud.
county to practice.
This copybook
I
is
do this
very
for you.
delicate.
You blame me
Second
for
sister,
Area?
don't you feel
Su
hot when you
Qingtan
hold it?
hurriedly
It
waved
should be
his
stolen
hand
from my
and
room.
apologized.
Susie Pace
"Mother,
said with a smile.
you know I didn't mean that."
Suddenly,
Ma'am,
she frowned.
Su
and
Chui
said
looked much
hurriedly,
better.
and
Mammy
immediately
Zhang,
said,
"Take off her clothes.
I will ask her.
Don't
to
dirty
keep
the
an eye
clown
on you in the
forging.
future."
When
Yes,
you're
miss.
studying,
Su
no
Lee
one
put
is
on the
allowed
linen
to come in
clothes
and
and stared at
disturb you,
Susie
even
Pei
Hauer
with her dark eyes.
Do you understand?
She held the dress.
Mother, I understand.
She had just
Su
taken off
Qingtan
and
couldn't put
smiled
it down.
bitterly in his heart.
Come with me.
Second Mississippi.
He had just promised
You've
his
been
second
hiding in the
sister
East
to teach her
Courtyard
how to
for the past
read,
few months,
and now
and the
he was
work in
going
the
to break
West
his
Courtyard
promise.
has already
By the
piled
way,
up like a mountain.
how is Area now?
Mammy Zhang sneered.
Ma'am,
Su
Su
Lee's
Chui
face was
asked
pale
with concern, and her body
But if you looked at her
trembled
eyes
slightly.
carefully,
Her pitiful
you would find
appearance
that there were
made
all
many
kinds of
servants
feelings
who
in
had
them,
just
except
arrived
for
feel
concern.
distressed. Mother,
Use the
second
best
sister's
honey
injuries have
locusts
been
to wash it
accumulated for
properly.
many years.
I don't want to smell
How can
my
she be
second
healed in a
sister's
month?
scent when I
Although
wear
I can
it?
get out of bed now.
After Suli
It'll
left,
still take a few months
Susie
for me
paid
to
through the
recover.
clothes to the maid.
Speaking
and
of
held
this,
her mother's arm.
Su Ching
She
Tan
smiled
looked
with bright
hesitant.
eyes and
Ma'am,
said,
Su
"Mother,
Chui didn't know her
you are
son's
so
thoughts,
amazing."
so she simply said,
The first madam
"Ask what you
smiled
want to ask,"
and said,
"Don't
"Nothing."
hesitate."
But she was calculating in her heart.
Su Ching Tan's face was slightly red.
The Lord probably
And then he
invited
said
the teacher for
seriously,
Qing Hao.
"Mother, not for
I want to
area."
ask the reason.
The teacher was
second
not a
sister's
meddlesome
injuries.
person.
Do you know?
You and I care about
Ma'am,
one less
Su Chui
area.
immediately
What's more,
became angry.
she sent a
Su
smarter
area
daughter
was
to
not
please
as
him.
beautiful
Tomorrow,
as Susie
she would
Pei.
give him some
How
silver.
could her son be
and the matter would
infatuated
be
with
over.
her
In
just
thinking
1
of
month?
this, First
even
Madam
suspected
could not
her
help
because
but
of her.
smile in relief.
For a time,
Now that the wretched girl
Suchui's
was
bad
in her
impression
hands again,
of Su Li
she
rose
could finally
sharply,
have a good
but
night's
she didn't get
sleep.
angry.
Spring was about to
Instead,
pass,
she said with
but
a
the weather
faint
was not
smile,
hot.
"What?
It was
Are you
very
distressed?
foggy in the early
Do you
morning.
suspect that I
Su Li
didn't
looked
save
dull.
her?"
She wore
I dare
a
not.
thin linen
Su
dress
Qingtan
and
was
sat on a
shocked
small wooden
and
stool
said hurriedly,
in front of the well.
"How could I think so?
Beside the well,
I just want to
there were
ask who
pots
hurt
of
second
dirty
sister.
clothes that were taller
Ma'am,
than her.
the musty
Suchui
smell
sighed
made
and
many
pretended
maids
to be
who
helpless
passed by cover their
Your
noses
first
and
mother
leave.
is the mistress of the family.
Mammy Zheng, I just
got
heard about
up and
Aries
went out with a
things.
big sneeze.
I didn't know that she had
couldn't
such
help
a hard time.
but murmur
Isn't
why the
second
weather was
sister
not warm. The first
She wrapped her
daughter of the
clothes
first
and
mother
came to the well.
How could she be so cruel?
She was immediately
Father
shocked.
doesn't care about
The
it.
wretched girl
Su
sat here
Qingtan
and drank
asked
all night.
incredulously.
She didn't even
You really
wash
didn't
a
want
piece
to
of
believe that
clothes?
the Su family
Mammy
was
Zheng
such a cold
immediately
family.
pulled a long
I don't know the
face.
details.
She picked up the
I heard
wrought
that
tan
Harriet
whip
made a
beside
big
the
mistake
well
when she was
and
very
slapped
young.
it on the ground.
So she ended up like
She
this.
sneered and said,
"Well,
don't
second
mention
miss,
these old things.
you have been in the East
What you need to do
Courtyard for 2
now
months.
is to study hard.
Don't you even
and
know how to
don't let me
wash
down.
clothes? Mother, don't
It seems
worry.
that second
I
Mrs.
will.
Memory is too
Su
bad.
Qingtan
I will help
believed his
you
mother's
to
words
consolidate
and
it.
immediately
Crack,
breathed a
crack.
sigh of relief.
Mammy Zheng
Swung
swung
her right
Su Chui
hand
left the
with
study
full
with
strength
after
and
a while.
whipped on Su Li's
Before
back,
leaving,
making
she
a
slightly
burst of
narrowed
sound.
her eyes. A strong
This little
pain hit her
vixen
heart.
was not
Su Li
good
groaned
looking,
twice,
but her ability
the corners
to
of her
seduce
mouth
people was
up.
the same.
This touch
as her
almost
mother's.
occupied
Keep an eye on
80%
Ariel.
of the
Let her
memory
contact with
of her
Tam
previous
last.
life. It was really nostalgic. After a while,
Chapter
Su
9.
Li's back was
Miss,
already red.
why do you come back
but
so
she didn't
early
make
today?
any sound.
Hearing the
after
footsteps
two muffled
outside,
groans.
Mammy Li
Mammy
immediately
Zheng
came
was
out of the
very
kitchen
angry.
in the small
The more she
courtyard
beat
and
her,
asked in
the
surprise.
thicker her skin became.
Su Li smiled
She used to make a
embarrassedly
pleasant scream
and explained,
but now she was like a dead
The second
person.
mother came
It was
to
no
see
fun
the
to beat
eldest
her.
brother.
However,
It's not good for me to
she was
stay
also
there.
afraid
So I
that
came back
Madam would
first.
blame her. if
Mammy,
she beat
is there
the second
anything
miss to
delicious
death.
for lunch today?
So
the
she
second
threw away
madam
the wrought
came.
tan whip.
Mammy Li
and
was
turned around to
shocked.
take a bowl
She wiped
of
her
black
hands
cornbread
and took off her
which was
apron.
harder than a
Then she
stone.
quickly came over
She squinted
and
and
grabbed
smiled.
Su Li's hand.
Second miss, since
She
you don't
looked
want
at
to wash
Su Li
clothes,
and
I
asked
can't force you.
nervously,
This
Did
is
the
your
second
dry
madam
food today.
embarrass you?
Don't get it
No.
dirty. The eldest brother is here. Su Li smiled foolishly. Alas, Mammy Li
Chapter
sighed
19.
softly.
Oh,
no matter how
second
good
miss,
the
I'm
first
so
master
sorry.
was, it's
He was the
inconvenient
son
for me
of
to
the
walk.
second madam.
But it's just
When
a
the
little
first
dirty
master
water.
understood
second
the ways
miss
of the world,
can eat it.
maybe
after
his
washing
feelings
it
with
with
the
the
well
second
water
miss would fade.
Mammy Zheng
These
took
thoughts
a
have
few
been
steps
lingering
back
in
and
Mammy
said,
Li's
I have to
mind
wake
for
up
a
the
long
madam.
time. So I
But
can't
seeing
help
that
second
Su Li
miss
was
washing.
rarely so
As
happy,
Nanny Zheng
she
spoke,
couldn't bear to
the
say a
unknown
word.
fire
After
in her
lunch,
heart burned
Su Li
again.
picked up a
Because Su Li
branch
didn't
to
look up at
practice
her from
calligraphy
beginning to
in the yard.
end.
Mammy
She
Li
didn't
thought
show
she was
any
playing,
resentment or
so she shook her
despair.
head and didn't
It was
care
as
much.
if she
Until
was
the
a
evening,
clown, Su Li hung
performing
down
that
her
funny
sore
monologue
arms
on the stage.
and sighed with
Damn
relief.
Damn
After
girl,
a month's hard
your
work,
eldest brother
she
is
had
far away in the
recognized
county
all the
town.
words of the
No one will
first level
save
of
you this
Shingon.
time.
Coupled
Mammy
with the
Zheng was
understanding
so
of the previous
angry
life,
that she left
she
with
had
a twist of her
understood
buttocks
80%.
and left.
Now it was
Su Li
no
looked up at the
problem to
back
start
of
practicing
Mammy Zheng.
immediately.
After a while,
but to be on the
she
safe
smiled
side,
gently.
she
The
had to
blood
wait
behind her
until
dripped
she fully
down the
understood
wooden
it.
stool.
Second sister,
2 hours later,
the eldest brother came
to
to
see
see
you.
courtyard.
Suddenly,
Qi Xianqing
the door of
came
the
a little
small
early,
courtyard was
and there was
knocked.
no one in the school.
Su Li
He sat
immediately
at the
dropped
desk
a
for a
branch
moment,
and
and a smile suddenly
Seeing
appeared on
Su
his wrinkled
Li's
face.
bright face.
Arius
Su Qingtan
Shingon was
smiled
advancing very
unconsciously.
fast.
He touched Su
In a few
Li's
days,
forehead.
she
and
would
said
break
softly
through
to the
second
second
sister.
hurdle.
At
Are
that
you
time,
angry?
my mother
He could teach
teaches
her
a
the
secret method of
She doesn't mean to
swordsmanship
blame you.
and practiced
Su Li
the
shook her
skill
head
of
like a
attack
rattle
with her
drum
mental method
and said
after she
crisply,
was proficient.
I'm fine.
She could
The
be
second
regarded
mother
as a
did
little
it for the
senior
good of the
in
eldest
Jianghu.
brother.
If he took her
Second
to see his
sister,
old
you
friends
were
next
so
year,
sensible.
those old friends
Su
who had
Qingtan
not
praised
found the
her
inheritor
and suddenly
would be
took out his
envious.
hand behind his
Ha
back.
ha ha.
He said,
Qi Xianqing
look what
couldn't
the
help
eldest
laughing.
brother brought you.
At this time,
Su Qingtan held a
footsteps
thick
came
basic
from outside the
copybook
door,
in his hand,
and he immediately
the cover was much
restored
more
his
delicate
usual
than the
serious
one
image.
Su Li
Su
saw
Qinghao
studied
came
before.
and jumped.
Dictionary
When he
of
saw
the
Qi
hand.
Xianqing with his
Su
head
Li was
tilted,
slightly stunned.
He immediately
She had seen this at his
copybook.
posture.
It was
and
exactly
saluted.
the same as
Good
the one
morning,
that the
sir.
disabled
He looked up and saw
taught
no
her
one
in
in
the
the
school.
previous life.
He suddenly felt
This is the
strange
calligraphy
and said,
book issued
"Hey,
by the government
second
of the
sister
Han
is
dynasty.
slower than me today.
The characters
Was
in
area going to
explanations
break
are the
through
most
to the
complete.
second hurdle
The
today?"
prefectural government,
Shi Xianqing
I am
was
going to have a
surprised
specialized
and smiled
school.
more deeply.
This book of calligraphy is
"She
no
must be delayed
longer
by
of any
something.
use to me.
Qinghao,
So
come
I
and
will
sit
give
down
it to you
first.
today.
Don't
Mother
be
will let
lazy
you go
in
to
the
the
morning
study,
class."
so you can only
Su
study by
Qinghao
yourself.
was surprised
Thank
and
you,
felt that
big
the
brother.
teacher was too
Suli
kind
took
today.
the copybook
but he didn't think
carefully,
much,
as if it
He
was a
went to sit in
treasure.
his seat and took out the book to read.
The last 8
After a
levels
while,
of the mental
Su
cultivation
Zipei
method
also
of the book of
arrived.
poison,
Seeing
and
that the
mysterious
teacher was a
kung
little
fu
absent-minded,
not only have a
she
lot
didn't
of
go
new
to
words,
disturb him.
But the
She
meaning
picked up
of
the
the
book
words
and read
is
like
even
Su
more
Qinghao.
obscure and
An hour
difficult
later,
to understand.
This copybook
was
is exactly what she
expressionless
needs now.
and still did
It's
not
just a
announce
copybook.
the end of the morning
Is there a
class.
need to be?
But he
so
was
happy?
very anxious.
Su
Could it be
Qinghao
that
couldn't help
Area
laughing
encountered
when he saw his second
difficulties in
sister
breaking through?
eyes
That
lit
shouldn't
up.
be the case.
This is the first
There was
gift
no
Big Brother
bottleneck
gave me.
in the first
Of course I'm
3
happy.
stages of cultivation.
Sully giggled.
Could it be
Su
that she was too
Qinghao was
lazy
stunned
to come today
and felt warm
Impossible.
in his heart. Although
She
he
was really
did
a
not
silly girl.
fully understand
In the blink of an
alas,
eye,
after these
2
2
months
months
had
of
passed.
interaction,
Su
he knew that
Qinghao
she
had
was
been
not a
studying
lazy
poetry
person.
and
That's
practicing
strange.
martial arts
Qi
every
Xianqing
day.
frowned. It was less than a month before the county nomination
Su Qinghao
was
read
announced.
so
Su
much
Huanli
that his mouth
specially
was
rushed
dry.
to the east
He
courtyard
couldn't help
to
but remind
supervise his son's
Sir,
revision.
the
But
morning
he was
class
inevitably
exceeded
worried.
a quarter of
Last
an hour.
year for the
As he
nomination,
spoke, he
almost
glanced at
half of the
Su's
family
pay
property was
and
spent.
muttered,
Even
"Why
if
is
the
it
county
that third
magistrate
sister
was
is
Shanbao
here
knew
instead of
that it
second
was a
sister?
misunderstanding,
Third sister.
he would never
Do you
say
know
it
why
clearly.
second sister
If
didn't
other
come today?
families offered a higher
Just when
price,
Susie Pei was
Tan's
about
place
to
would
brush
be
it off,
uncertain.
she saw the
Master,
teacher looking
don't
at
worry
her
too
with a
much.
serious face.
The first young master
Her heart
is
beat
talented in
wildly,
both
and she
literature
said
and
guiltily,
martial arts. I don't know
even compared
either.
with those young
If the
talents in
students
county,
aren't here today,
he is not
I
inferior.
won't be teaching.
If Li
Qi
Shanbao
Xianqing
goes
got
too
up
far,
impatiently.
let the
and
first
said,
young master
Su
go
Qinghao,
directly to the county
follow
city
me
to your
to
second
participate
sister's
in the
yard.
martial arts
Su
competition.
Qinghao was also very
The
worried.
old butler
He immediately
comforted
got
him.
up and said,
Su Huanli
"Yes,
snorted
sir."
coldly. Suzy
What do you
Pei
know?
was anxious.
The water
when
in
she
the
heard
county
it.
city
She wondered
is
why her
deeper.
mother hadn't
Swords and
handled the matter
sabers have
well.
no eyes
She quickly
in the
stopped
martial
Qi
arts competition
Xianqing and said,
"Over the years,
Sir,
I
many
heard that
people have
second
left their
sister has
hands and
recovered
feet there
and is no
Tan
longer
is the eldest son
recuperating in
of
the
our
East
Su
courtyard.
family. Qi
I will never
Xianqing
allow
didn't
him
know
to
the
take
structure of the
risks."
Su house.
But
He
Lord,
nodded and asked,
the old
Do you know where
butler
she
looked
lives
worried
now?
inside.
This.
What should we do?
Suzy Pei
Su
looked
Huanli's
embarrassed.
face was
I don't
very
know.
long.
Suzy
If it weren't for the
Pei
trouble
was about
made
to
by
make up a
Zi Pei
reason
last
to
year.
delay time.
How could his
Su
Su family
Qinghao
be in
suddenly pulled
such an
Qi
embarrassing
Xianqing's
position?
sleeve and
Knock.
shouted, Sir,
At this moment,
you have to
there was
save
a
my
soft
second
knock
sister.
outside the
My
courtyard
eldest brother
door.
said that
A
his
soft
second
and
sister
pleasant
is
voice
not
came,
in the East Courtyard.
"Daddy, I should
Area
ask you
brings you
for
snacks.
help." My eldest
Area?
brother said
Su
many
Huanli
times
frowned.
that you have
The
to
butler
save my
immediately
second sister.
explained.
Qi
Before the first
Xianqing
madam and Su
and the
Zi
third
Pei
miss.
changed their faces
Second
at the
miss
same
was
time.
seriously
Damn,
injured
Su
and has been
Qingtan even
recuperating
saved
in the
this.
East Courtyard.
Su Zi Pei
Hum.
scolded
It's
Su
nonsense.
Qingtan in her heart
Su Huanli,
and looked at the
who had a
gate
bad
anxiously.
feeling,
Became
I've been
angrier
teaching
when he
happily
heard
for
the
the
butler
past 2
mention
months.
his third daughter.
I even forgot
Suzy
the
Pei.
situation of this
At this
girl
time,
in the
Sully
Su
pushed
family
the door and came
Qi
in with a tray.
Xianqing wanted to give
She
himself
put the tray on the
2
tea
slaps.
table next
He
to
pulled
Su
Su Qinghao's hand
You were the
and
second
said in a
miss?
deep voice,
Take me to see your father. I want to make it clear to him
Chapter
in person.
10.
You are
Su
Area?
Qinghao turned
Su
around
Huanli
and
was
ran.
also shocked, but his sleeve
It seemed
was
that he
pulled
didn't
by
dare
Suzy
to
Pei.
associate the
He almost
beautiful
fell
girl
down
in front of him
He turned
with the
back
ugly
and said
dark
angrily,
and thin little girl
Third
in his
sister,
memory.
what are you
After
doing?
3 months
Suzy
of
Pei
careful
was
recuperation,
so anxious
Julie finally
that she
got
didn't
rid
know
of
how
her
to
ugly
explain.
appearance.
At this
The
time,
warm red
a
velvet
voice that
coat
made her
made
feel
her
at
white
ease
oval
finally
face
sounded.
rosy.
Dr.
Her
Chi,
nose was
calm
tall
down.
and small.
What happened?
Her pink lips
Why are
were
you so
shiny,
anxious?
as if they were smeared with honey.
Her long black hair was scattered behind her like ink. Her starry
Chapter
black
20.
eyes were
Qi
rippling
Xianqing knew
with
that
the
his
purest
relationship
color
with
in
Su
the world.
Area
I didn't
was not
expect
suitable to
that
be
after
exposed.
recuperation,
So he had to
second
hide his
miss would be
anxiety.
reborn. He coughed
She's really a
slightly
beauty
and said
in a few
lightly,
years.
Today,
She may be
the
the
second
first
miss
beauty
did not
in
come to
Daesu
the
Town.
school. My
The
rule
old butler
is that if
couldn't
the
help
students are
but
not all,
exclaim
I will
loudly.
not teach. Su Huanli
Please
woke
tell
up
me
with
where
the
the
start
second
and
miss
felt
is
a
so
little
that I can go
regretful.
and have a look.
If he had known
The
that
first
Area
madam's
looked
smile
like
was
this,
slightly
he would
stiff,
never let Area
and she
take the
secretly
blame
scolded
for
the
Zi Pei.
pedantic old man
But it was
for
too
having
late
such
now.
a quirk.
The more
Sir,
Su Huanli
please step
thought
aside
about it,
and have a talk.
the more he felt
The first
that he had
madam
suffered a
stretched
loss.
out her hand
The
and
anger in
pointed
his
to a
heart
path.
rose again.
Qi Xianqing
He even
looked
couldn't help
slightly
rewarding
cold,
Zi Pei,
but he still
with
walked
half a
over.
year's confinement.
Sure enough,
he still wants
Grandpa
money.
Butler,
But
don't
if he can
say
solve
that.
it with money,
How can
I will
Area
accept
deserve
it.
this title?
The first madam
Sully panicked
snorted slightly
and said
in order to
flatteringly.
trace the
Then she
origin
seemed
of the
to
jade
think of
pendant,
something.
She
She
smiled
smiled
and
and
pushed the snacks
she could
on only
tea
hoped
table.
that Chi Xinshin's
Daddy, the
appetite
snacks are
was
still
not
hot.
too big.
Mammy said
Wow,
they are delicious.
You're all bad people.
Ariel wants to bring
You don't
them to
save
you.
the second sister.
Su Huanli's face
I'm going to find
didn't
my
change,
father.
but his heart
Su
was
Qinghao
slightly warm.
saw the two
He almost
left
forgot the
and
existence
suddenly
of this
burst
girl
into
in his
tears.
ears.
He shook off
She
Susie
still remembered
K's
him
hand
and didn't
rushed
forget
out
to
of the
bring
yard.
delicious
The first
food
madam
to
was
share with
shocked.
and
Thinking
turned
of
back.
this, Su
She
Huanli
said
felt a
eagerly,
little guilty.
"Catch him."
He showed a kind
A
face.
group of
and said
maids
with a
and
smile,
mermaids immediately caught up.
Daddy will have
with
a
Su
taste.
Qinghao.
The old butler
No matter
was
how
surprised.
Su
The
Qinghao
master
cried and
never
begged,
smiled
no one
to
let
his
go.
children.
The
It
first
was the first
madam
time for him
breathed
to
a sigh
show
of
such a
relief
kind look.
and said,
At this moment,
Zipe,
the status of
look after
second
your
miss
miss
in the mind
Don't
of the
let him out
butler
of this yard before I come
immediately
back.
rose.
Susie
several
Pay's hand
levels.
was hurt,
Well,
and she was angry.
What kind of snack
When
is
she
this?
heard her mother's
What a
words,
strange smell.
her eyes
The
brightened,
fragrance of the
and she said
Audiobook
with a smile
came into
Mother,
his nose.
don't worry.
Su Huanli Huanli picked up the
take
snacks
good
on the
care
tea
of the
table.
fourth brother.
It was the first time
The
for
first
him
madam
to see the
nodded
snack
slightly
wrapped in brown
and walked
leaves
with cheese
and
and
shaped like an
Xing
awl
to the deep
Daddy,
garden of the yard.
I made it myself.
She pretended to sigh
I named it
and said,
Zomzi. Sir,
Suli
you don't
skillfully
know.
opened
Area will
Zomzi
not
leaves,
come to the school
and a
in the
fragrance
future.
several times
Qi Xianqing
stronger
frowned
than before
and was angry in his
immediately
heart,
filled
but he
the
said
whole room.
lightly, "You made it
Oh,
yourself."
why?
Zhu
Zhu
Yan
looked
looked embarrassed,
embarrassed
slightly,
and
and his first
squeezed out a
reaction
tear from
was
the
that
corner of
Su
her
Li was
eyes.
lying.
She said
However,
sadly, now that he
"Sir,
was tempted by
it
the
is related to the
fragrance,
private
he didn't get to the
affairs of
bottom
Su
of it.
family.
Instead,
It is not
he took the
suitable for
Zomzi
outsiders
peel
to
from
know."
Su Li
Qi
and bit.
Xianqing smiled
The delicious
slightly.
taste
"I am
instantly
not a nosy
exploded
person."
in his mouth.
The first madam
The sticky,
looked happy.
glutinous rice
Qi
was
Xianqing
wrapped around
said
the
again.
fatty meat.
However,
But it was fat.
today's
but
matter is
not
related to
greasy.
my student. It had
So
both
I
the
have to do it
fragrance of the meat
reluctantly
and the
in
rich
affinity.
fragrance of the egg.
Zhu Yan's face
After chewing,
immediately
the texture
became
was even
uglier
more
than pig
tender and
liver.
soft. The old man didn't finish his words. Was he deliberately playing with her? How could he put a money-losing person in his eyes? Zhu Yin thought so in her heart, but she didn't show it on the surface. She said sadly, "Not long after I gave birth to Arya, I was pregnant with a second child. But the girl was really a jinx. She could crawl and bump when she was only 3 months old. My son was killed because of the bump. Because of this, the old master flew into a rage and punished him. Madam has said so much. What does it have to do with Su Arya's literacy?" Qi Xianqing sneered in his heart. What a little punishment. She could be so cruel to her own daughter. As expected, a woman's heart was the most vicious. How could it not be related? Zhu Yin seemed to be anxious and spoke faster. "I heard that the students taught by the teacher are all people with both ability and integrity. Arya is unfilial and stupid. She is not qualified to be the teacher's student." Speaking of this, Zhu Yin said with a smile, "On the contrary, Zipei is beautiful, smart, and filial to her parents. She is the best candidate to be your disciple." A chuckle came from Qi Xianqing's mouth. Zhu Yin didn't know why, but she heard the former's tone was still flat. "Madam's words are reasonable, but whether she's qualified to be my student is up to me, not you. No matter how extravagant Madam's words are, this old man will only treat it as wind blowing past my ears and not listen to a single word." As soon as he said this, the field immediately fell into silence. Zhu Yin was stunned for a long time, and then she reacted. She was so angry that she laughed out and said coldly, "Sir, let's get to the point. How much money do you need to let this matter go?" As soon as she said this, it was Qi Xianqing's turn to be stunned. He opened a pair of turbid old eyes, and his eyes were full of disbelief. The first madam of the Su family actually wanted to buy him with money? Qi Xianqing waved his sleeves and turned away. The direction was actually the main courtyard of the Su family. Zhu Yin was shocked and immediately caught up with him. She shouted while chasing, "Sir, don't run. We can discuss the price again." Ouch! A stone blocked the road, and Zhu Yin fell down carelessly. The skin on her face was broken. Ouch! God damn it! This old man is going to die soon. How can he run faster than a rabbit? Zhu Yin climbed up and sat on the ground. She held her legs and cried out in pain. Her eyes were full of tears. "No, I have to go back to the west courtyard to arrange it. Come on, help me up." Qi Xianqing used his body movement to go all the way to the main courtyard of the Su family. When he approached the gate of the courtyard, he slowed down. He put on a calm smile and said politely, "Is the master of the Su family here? I am Qi Xianqing." When Su Huanli heard the voice outside the house, he immediately put away the account in his hand. He got up and opened the door. When he saw Qi Xianqing, he couldn't help but wonder, shouldn't you be teaching in the school at this time? Why do you have time to come here? Haha, Arya didn't come to the class today, so I didn't teach the class. Listening to Qi Xianqing's hearty laughter, Su Huanli frowned slightly. Oh, is there such a thing? Sir, the children of the Su family are never lazy people. I will go to Arya's yard to have a look. Chapter 21. Hearing that, Su Huanli's face immediately became as ugly as it could be. What was Zhu Yin doing again? Butler! Su Huanli shouted, and the old butler with sweat on his head immediately hurried in from outside the courtyard. Master, what can I do for you?
The carriage to the silk shop broke down, and I am in a hurry to find a coachman. Seeing that the old butler's cotton-padded clothes were stained with sweat, Su Huanli swallowed the blame in his mouth and waved. You go to the west courtyard and bring Area here. The second miss went back to the west courtyard. The old butler was shocked. When he saw Qi Xianqing, he suddenly understood something. His eyes were stained with anxiety. He ran to the west courtyard without saying anything and left the matter of the carriage behind him. Head of the Su family, Area is my student. I'm really worried about her, so I go with the butler to have a look. Qi Xianqing waved his sleeves and left with the old butler directly. Su Huanli's eyes widened. He specially asked the butler to keep an eye on Qi Xianqing. How could the dirty linen of the family be spread out? But this old scholar left him directly and ran to the west courtyard. It was really unreasonable. Su Huanli was so angry that he immediately chased after him. From the main courtyard of the Su house to the west courtyard, they had to pass through 2 large courtyards and a long corridor. It usually took about 15 minutes to walk slowly. The old butler and Su Huanli were so anxious that they arrived at the gate of the west courtyard in just a quarter of an hour. Crack! As soon as they stepped into the west courtyard, a loud whip came from the southwest of the courtyard, which made the 2 old people have goosebumps. No, my apprentice, second miss, is in danger. The 2 looked at each other and unconsciously launched their martial arts at the same time and flew to the southwest. After passing through a circular arch, they saw a pile of dirty clothes. An old mammy with a strong back and a bear's waist was raising the whip in her hand and was about to break it. Stop! Qi Xianqing was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. In a hurry, he directly grabbed the end of the whip. A hidden force passed through the whip to Mammy Zheng's hand and exploded. Mammy Zheng was directly blown away and crashed into the piles of dirty clothes. The stench spread. Butler Li was vigilant. If he didn't expose himself this time, he would not know that Qi Xianqing was a martial arts practitioner. Who are you? Qi Xianqing squatted down to check Su Li's injury. His eyes were full of distress. Su Li seemed to be invisible to him. She stared at the cornbread that was crushed in the muddy water. Answer me. Butler Li's tone became tough. Qi Xianqing said impatiently. Li Yin of Shuelo Tower, who was once famous in Wulin, was hiding in a small family as a steward. Li Yin's turbid pupils shrank, and he subconsciously took a few steps back, his whole body tensed up. He didn't expect that the person in front of him would see through his identity just by revealing his movement technique. Could it be that the group of people still hadn't let him go? Don't worry, kid. The Yinma cult has already been exterminated. No one will care about a nobody. Under the calm look of Qi Xianqing, there was a volcanic anger that was about to erupt. Now I want to know, is it the first madam of the Su family who hurt my disciple so much? As soon as he finished speaking, there was a sound of disordered footsteps outside the round, arched door. However, Li Yin had 10,000 questions in his mind, so he could only temporarily suppress them. Passing through the courtyard gate, Su Huanli walked in the front, followed by the first madam, the second madam, Su Zipei, and Su Qinghao. The whole Su family basically came. Master, 2 madams. Butler Li Yin saluted and retreated to the side. What the hell is going on? Area. Su Huanli's hands trembled, and he walked to Su Li. Looking at the blood splashed on the porcelain doll's white face and the disordered bloodstains on the snow-white skin behind her, he thought of the little face that smiled brighter than the sunshine in the courtyard. His calculating eyes unexpectedly shed tears. He was distressed. Master. Zhu Yin covered her mouth in surprise, and there was an unconcealable panic in her eyes. Aria's position in the master's mind was so important. How could it be possible? The second madam was also surprised, and she looked at Zhu Yin with more fear. Although she had heard some rumors, it was the first time for her to see Su Li being beaten bloody. My student, Qi Xianqing screamed, and it seemed that he just reacted. A pair of trembling old hands gently wiped the blood and tears on Su Li's face. He said this. Who is she? She is so cruel and vicious. She is an unpardonable sinner. How could she hurt a 14-year-old girl so badly. I will report it to the government. Lian was stunned. If he hadn't seen Qi Xianqing slap Mammy Zheng, he might have been kept in the dark at this time. His acting was really good. Lian lowered his eyes, as if he didn't see it. Qi Xianqing didn't want to expose his identity. He had lived incognito for many years, so he naturally didn't want to. You can't report to the government, or the reputation of our Su family will be ruined. Hearing Qi Xianqing shout, Su Huanli became sober a lot. The first madam's pale face suddenly recovered a lot of blood. It seemed that the master still cared about the relationship of many years. Qi Xianqing seemed to be so angry that his face turned pale. He gasped and said, Good, good, good. Su Huanli, I didn't expect that the dignified Su family was a place of hiding filth. It even harbored a vicious woman who abused a girl. I have been upright all my life and will never abandon it. As soon as Qi Xianqing said that, Zhu Yin, who had just recovered, immediately disappeared. She trembled and screamed, You old man, it's not your turn to care about the family affairs of our Su family. Arya is my daughter. Even if I beat her to death, it's my business. Get out of here immediately if you know what's good for you. Otherwise, I won't let you go out of the gate of the Su house. Scholars were all weak. Zhu Yin thought that the old man in front of her would be like those scholars. After being threatened by her, he would take the money and leave obediently. But Qi Xianqing didn't change his face after hearing that. Zhu Yan's heart thumped, and she felt that a catastrophe was coming. Qi Xianqing breathed out a turbid breath. He glanced at Su Huanli and Zhu Yin fiercely and said in a deep voice, If there are still teachers who will teach the children of your Su family tomorrow, I will be in vain. As for Su Qingtan's official career, I will stop him even if I have to risk my life. If such a ruthless family member becomes an official with great power, it will be the misfortune of Dehan country. Goodbye. Take care, master. Su Huanli grabbed Qi Xianqing at once, but he found that his hands and feet were cold. Even his heartbeat was scared to stop. If Qi Xianqing really spread the news, their Su family would be finished. What's the matter, head of the Su family? Qi Xianqing shook off Su Huanli's hand and said with obvious disgust. Su Huanli took a deep breath and kept silent for a long time. Then he turned around and said, Madam, didn't you say that your mother's family was in a hurry? Set off for home tomorrow. Zipei will go with you. Master. Zhu Yan's voice trembled, and she was about to cry. Master even drove her away for the wicked girl? Father, I don't want to go. I don't want my mother to go. Su Zipei hugged Su Huanli's waist. She pouted and her eyes turned red. Her pitiful appearance was really lovable. Su Huanli was moved, but when he saw Qi Xianqing's cold face beside him, he could only shake off Su Zipei and said coldly, It's settled. And, Mammy Zheng, send someone to send her to the government. Mammy Zheng, who just climbed out of the pile of clothes, heard this sentence. She was scared and immediately screamed, Master, please spare my life. The first madam asked me to do this, and the third miss. I can only follow the orders. Second miss, please spare my life. You are the kindest. Dr. Qi. The harsh words filled everyone's ears. Su Huanli's face was burning. Qi Xianqing knew that it was the right time. The Zhu family was powerful. If he forced Su Huanli again, Su Huanli couldn't come up with a better way to deal with it. Immediately, he looked a little relaxed and said, Head of the Su family, I didn't force you. An aristocratic family with both virtue and conduct should do this. Please forgive me for what I said before. Su Huanli reluctantly twitched the corner of his mouth. His smile was uglier than crying. He saw the power of pedantic scholars. However, he felt that it was not bad to let Zhu Yan, who had always been overbearing and strong, suffer a loss. Master, how should we deal with the second miss? Butler Li reminded him timely. Su Huanli stared at him and almost scolded. Butler Li touched his sore spot. He wanted to wait for Zhu Yan to come back, and then let Arya apologize to her to ease the relationship. But now it was impossible. Qi Xianqing was a little surprised. Lian seems to care about Arya subconsciously. Good, good. However, Even if Li Yin didn't raise this problem, he would raise it. After all, he acted for Su Li for so long. Su Huanli met Qi Xianqing's eyes, and he was inexplicably afraid. He pondered for a moment and couldn't help but sigh. Forget it. In for a penny, in for a pound. Arias suffered a lot this time. The first madam was confused for a moment. She will never do it again. Su Huanli's tone was very strict. Zhu Yin was so angry that she couldn't say a word. Since she married into the Su family, when did she suffer this kind of suffering? There's a yard in the north of the west courtyard called Jinyuan Court. Area will move there later. When Su Huanli just finished, Zhu Yin jumped up like a cat whose tail was stepped on and screamed, "No! Master, you said that Jinyuan Court is reserved for our son. How can we give it to Area?" Su Huanli blamed Zhu Yin for not seeing the situation clearly, but he couldn't say it clearly. He could only say helplessly, "When Wu Heir is born in the future, we will build another yard. This matter has been settled. It's useless to say more." He turned around, and his expression had completely returned to normal. He said, "In addition, I need Dr. Qi's help to treat the injury. Don't worry, I always protect my shortcomings. Since Area has become my student, I will take care of her." Qi Xianqing said and turned his head and said, "Butler Li, please prepare a carriage to send me to the Bai Chao Tang. There are all kinds of medicinal materials there. It is easy for me to treat Area's injury." Butler Li nodded and left silently. Qi Xianqing also held Su Li, who was as light as nothing, and followed him. Chapter 22. It's all for the reputation of our Su family. Madam, you have to suffer for a while. In addition, how about you send Mammy Zheng to the government office? Zhu Yin was relieved by Su Huanli's kindness, but she was still cold on the surface. Because of the jade pendant, she often took money from home, which had caused her parents' displeasure. If Su Huanli neglected her again, her life would be more difficult. When Mammy Zheng heard that she was arranged by Madame, she looked happy. But when she thought of what she had done before, she was scared and broke into a cold sweat. She quickly thought of a remedy. "Sister, I will go back to the yard first," Zhu Yin said to the second madam, and turned around with a gloomy look. Mammy Zheng shrank beside her like a turtle. After the group of people went away, there were only Li Yulian and her maids in the yard. "It's really a war." Li Yulian sighed and said to herself, "But there is no winner in this war. The Lord is not a man on both sides. Zhu Yan's evil deeds will be gossiped. Dr. Qi intervenes in the family affairs, which will make others fear him." No. Li Yulian's indifferent expression suddenly became serious. She forgot that there was another person who was a complete winner. Because she was too small, she even ignored her before. However, Area did not take the initiative from beginning to end. It was too exaggerated to say that it was the little girl's plot. It was just a coincidence. Li Yulian shook her head and smiled. Then she turned and left. Mammy Zheng followed the first madam back to the wing room, trembling. When the first madam rebuked other mammies, she was even more nervous. The first madam treated them well, but her words and deeds today were a real betrayal. "Mammy, how many years have you been with me?" Zhu Yan's calm tone seemed to be brewing magma. As she said this, the air was stagnant. Plop! Mammy Zheng knelt down without saying a word. Her fat shook the slate. "Madam, I was really wrong. I was also confused at that time. I didn't mean it. Considering that I have served you for so many years, please spare my life." Zhu Yin was silent. Mammy Zheng was more anxious. She climbed to hold the first madam's legs and kept begging for mercy. Because she knew the background of the Zhu family, she knew that she had no other way but to beg for mercy. Slap! Zhu Yin slapped him hard and fast. Half of Nanny Zhang's face swelled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. "I clearly told you that you could only use the vine whip in the morning and evening. Why did you whip her when the sun was high up in the sky?" After being beaten, Mammy Zheng felt relieved. She touched half of her face and said, "I've always followed Madam's order. But today, I don't know why that girl went crazy. She even put the broken cornbread in the muddy water into my mouth when I was not paying attention. There's such a thing." The surprise flashed in Zhu Yan's eyes. The girl never knew how to resist. Did she become enlightened under the training of Su Qingtan in the past few months? Silly girl, why didn't you resist when you were beaten? In the Bai Chao Tang, Qi Xianxing applied medicine for Su Li and blamed her with disappointment. The Xiangong that the master taught you is very powerful. Don't be afraid of the old mammy. I understand. Su Li lowered her head and suddenly raised her head. Her black crystal eyes were pure and flawless, flashing with grievance and depression. But she was sent by my mother. What did I do wrong? Why doesn't she like me? That vicious woman treated you so badly, but you still treat her as your mother. Qi Xianxing was so depressed that he couldn't breathe, but he didn't know how to comfort her. Finally, he could only carefully wipe away Su Li's crystal-like tears. He coaxed her for a long time like coaxing his granddaughter. He didn't go to rest until Su Li fell asleep. Today's matter is over for the time being. Hearing what the mist said, Mammy Zheng was relieved. But Zhu Yin said again, "Go back to the Zhu family with me tomorrow. But before that, I need you to atone for your crime. Miss, please tell me. I will do anything for you." Getting the opportunity to regain trust, Mammy Zheng's eyes lit up with hope. "You only need to put this thing into Arya's mouth tonight, and then you will complete my task." Zhu Yin took out a jade bottle and put it in Mammy Zheng's hand. Mammy Zheng was slightly shocked. Madam actually asked her to kill people. "Don't worry. This medicine is colorless and tasteless. It cost me a lot to get it. Even Dr. Qi can't find any clues. Everyone in the town knows the layout of the Bai Chao Tang. I don't need to say more, right?" Speaking of this, Zhu Yin smiled and gently said in Mammy Zheng's ear, "Don't worry. As long as this thing is done, you will be the #1 confidant of Zhu Yin. In the future, you will definitely enjoy endless glory, splendor, wealth, and rank." Mammy Zheng was very excited. Thinking of the loose layout of the Bai Chao Tang, she hesitated for a moment and finally nodded firmly. Sitting in the carriage specially prepared by the madam, Mammy Zheng's heart beat wildly. While fantasizing about the good life in the future, she forced herself to recall every corner of the Bai Chao Tang. There's only one guest room in the Bai Chao Tang. Su area must be arranged there. As long as we climb over the wall from the east, we can get there directly. Time passed quickly. The carriage stopped in front of the Baiwei building. It was already late at night, and there was no one on the street. Mammy Zheng got off the carriage and looked at the empty street. She unconsciously swallowed. Maybe the voice was too loud and scared herself. After calming down, she recognized the direction and ran to the Bai Chao Tang under the cover of the night. In less than a quarter of an hour, she arrived at the east wall. There are many places on the wall. It is not difficult to climb over. After observing, Mammy Zheng plucked up the courage to climb. But the practice process was more difficult than she imagined. After climbing for about 10 minutes, she saw the bare top of the wall. Soon, Mammy Zheng was happy and plucked up the strength to put one hand on the top of the wall. Suddenly, a white and delicate hand stretched out from the darkness and pinched Mammy Zheng's throat as fast as lightning. Mammy Zheng was terrified and struggled violently. But the seemingly weak and slender hand just clasped her throat like a steel bar and didn't move at all. The dark clouds dispersed, and the bright moonlight sprinkled over the earth like mercury. A girl in a thin shirt sat on the top of the wall and smiled against the moonlight. She held a fat woman who was disproportionate to her size in her hand. With the moonlight, Mammy Zheng finally saw the person in front of her, which almost scared her out of her wits. "Su Arya. Sure enough, I got something." Su Li smiled softly and said to herself, "I didn't poison Qi Xianxing in vain." Poison Qi Xianxing in vain? How did the wicked girl know that I would come? Was she really Su Arya? Mammy Zheng was frightened at the moment. She was about to speak, but the hand on her throat suddenly tightened, and she rolled her eyes. Su Li looked cold. After looking around, she carried Mammy Zheng with one hand like carrying a broken sack and swaggered out of the Desa town on the street. The mottled shadows of the forest in the middle of the night looked extremely horrible. Mammy Zheng was suffocated and almost fainted. She suddenly felt that her throat was loosened and fell to the ground. She immediately gasped and coughed because of the cold air. After recovering some strength, she immediately turned around and fled. But she was suddenly pushed behind and hit the tree directly. Her head was bleeding. Mammy Zheng, it's not right to escape. A long time ago, when you pushed me, when you hit me, when you pushed me, I never tried to escape. Su Li came with a smile like a night elf, but in Mammy Zheng's eyes, she was a full devil. Don't come over. Su Area, no. Second miss, I just listened to Madam's order. I didn't deliberately bully you. Mammy Zheng finally recognized the reality and begged for mercy and fear. Su Li gently stretched out her hand. Mammy Zheng was so scared that she closed her eyes. She waited for a long time, but found that Su Li didn't beat her. Let me see what my mother gave you. Mammy Zheng's chest was empty. She wanted to stop Su Li, but found that Su Li's hand was surprisingly fast. The jade bottle appeared in Su Li's hand like a phantom. Who the hell are you? Su Area is a mean girl who can be scolded. How can she know martial arts? Oh, I know. You're not Su Area at all. Mammy Zheng was stimulated to be crazy and kept talking nonsense. Slap. A slap hit her far away and made her completely sober. She lay in the rotten leaves and didn't move. Su Li unhurriedly opened the jade bottle and sniffed it. Then she smiled even more. It turns out to be the mind-rotting pill. People who are poisoned by it will die within 1 day, just like a sudden death. She squatted down and put the jade bottle to Mammy Zheng's mouth. Mammy Zheng immediately tried her best to raise her head and shut her mouth. She kept begging for mercy through her teeth. Don't kill me. It's Madam's order. I'm just a cheap life. Don't kill me. Su Li slowly took back the jade bottle and corked it. Mammy Zheng was relieved and collapsed to the ground. Of course, I don't want to kill you with a mind-rotting pill. It is very valuable in the black market. Su Li said. Mammy Zheng suddenly widened her eyes and made a sound of ho-ho. She wanted to say something, but finally, she didn't say anything and died. Su Li gently withdrew her hand from Mammy Zheng's heart and wiped all the blood on Mammy Zheng. She looked calm, as if she had killed a chicken. She pitifully said to herself, if I had a weapon, I wouldn't have to dirty my hands. After burying Mammy Zheng on the spot, Su Li lightly returned to the Bai Chao Tang. At this moment, the sky was already white. She hummed an inexplicable short song and shuttled between the medicine cabinets like a butterfly flying through flowers. After a short time, she compounded the antidote for the poisonous smoke and fed it to Qi Xianqing. Then she reapplied medicine to the cracked back wound and went back to the guest room to sleep. The entire process took less than 4 hours. An hour later, Qi Xianqing woke up. He got up and stretched himself. He sighed. With the little girl beside me, I even sleep more soundly. After washing, Qi Xianqing opened the door of the guest room. When he saw Su Li still sleeping soundly, he couldn't help but smile warmly. Then he turned around and compounded the medicine. 2 days later, the injury on Su Li's back improved, and she could barely walk. Su Li immediately asked to return to the Su family. Qi Xianqing couldn't resist the repeated requests of his precious apprentice and had to send her back. As early as yesterday, Mammy Li returned to the Su house and waited in the Jinyuan court. Within a day, the Jinyuan court had been cleaned up. After walking around, Qi Xianqing was very satisfied. Apprentice, remember that you are injured now. Don't practice these days, and don't fight with others, so as not to affect the wound. As he said, Qi Xianqing laughed first. If Arya could fight with others, it would be strange. On the delicate pear-wood bed, Su Li lay on the edge of the bed and nodded obediently. After Qi Xianqing left, Mammy Li came over to Loss and nagged. Miss, the layout of the Jinyuan court is so exquisite. The books, bedding, wooden furniture, and tea set are all fine. I didn't expect that there is such a place in the Su family. Chapter 23. Mammy Li shivered and became silent. She didn't know whether she was thinking of the past or Su Li's cold reminder a few days ago. Mammy, I just want to stay in the Jinyuan court quietly now. It's better not to be bullied. If I am bullied, I want to have the strength to fight back. It's not like before, when I couldn't even control my own life and death. I don't want to experience that again. Speaking of this, Suli showed a bitter smile and said, Mother is really cruel. I thought that as long as I don't resist, even if I have a hard life, I will not die. So I have been silent and did not resist. But I am still too naive. Mammy Lee was moved. It turned out that the second miss was not stupid, but she was too stupid. Because of the cold words before, she was afraid of the second Mississippi. But thinking carefully, the second miss thought about how to survive every day at such a young age. If she was not clever, how could she live to the present? And before, the second miss repeatedly rescued her from the hands of the first madam. Where could she find such a kind-hearted miss? For a moment, the surging sense of guilt almost drowned her. Second miss. Mammy Lee grasped Sue Lee's little hand tightly and said, No matter what you say or do in the future, I will support you unconditionally. Sue Lee's eyes turned, and she put the other hand on Mammy Lee's hand. She smiled like spring. Finally, she had the first loyal pawn. It was not easy. Mammy Lee's tears shone. At this time, she couldn't help but think of the old miss who had passed away. If she could use her wisdom to escape, maybe she would not die so miserably that year. The next day, the sun was shining. The Sioux house returned to peace. Chi Xianqing taught Su Li to read, as usual, and temporarily put aside the Xiangong cultivation. This made Chi Xianqing very angry. Area was about to break through the second hurdle, but Zhu Yin made trouble and postponed the matter. Second sister, you look much better today. After the class, Su Qinghao jumped from his position and came to Su Li. He pretended to touch Su Li's forehead like a little adult. Su Li slightly raised her mouth and smiled. She was about to touch Su Qinghao's head with her hand, but Su Qinghao was pulled away by a hand. Su Li looked up and slightly restrained her smile. She showed a respectful expression and saluted, Hello, second mother. You too. Li Yulian looked at Su Li with a complicated expression, and there was always an inexplicable fear in her heart. She said, Qinghao has a martial arts class, so I can't stay here any longer. Su Li nodded obediently and waved her hand. Goodbye, second mother. Li Yulian looked a little relaxed and left with Su Qinghao. Su Area was so well-behaved and sensible. Was it really a coincidence before? She was paranoid and thought too much. After 7 quiet days, Zhu Yin and Su Zipei finally returned to the Su house that night. Looking at the brightly lit Jinyuan court, Zhu Yin gnashed her teeth with hatred. What a good nanny, Zheng. She even ran away regardless of anything. Stupid girl. I'll let you live for a period of time. Jin Garden belongs to my son. No one could take it away from him. Hearing the news that Zhu Yin came back, Su Huanli was surprised. Zhu Yin came back so soon. He thought that Zhu Yin would stay in her parents' home for more than half a month. Zhu Yin had no other choice. She was already a married girl of the Zhu family, which was like spilled water. Moreover, recently, she not only often asked for money from her parents' home, but also went back to the Zhu family to eat and drink for free. She had already caused a lot of gossip. Su Zipei couldn't stand crying all the time. Finally, she had to be thick-skinned and go back to the Su family first. Madam, I'm afraid that Mr. Qi is still angry. Don't go to the school to make trouble. Don't go to the Jinyuan court either. After the last incident, Mr. Qi often went to the Jinyuan court to check Aria's injury. Su Huanli came over in a hurry and told her. Zhu Yin was so angry that she stared at him and said, Master, you even restrict me for an outsider? What's the reason? We have been together for many years. Can't we compare with a poor scholar? Su Huanli sighed deeply and comforted her. Madam, I'm also thinking about the overall situation. Although Dr. Qi has no money or power, none of his students is easy to deal with. They are all officials of the imperial court, and he has a very high prestige in his school. If we don't appease him, the future of our Su family will be over. Madam, you must bear it. Although she knew that the master would pressure her with the overall situation, Zhu Yin was so angry that she couldn't eat or sleep. In just half a month, she was so thin that she was out of shape. Zhu Yin had never been so sullen. It was outrageous. When I pass Zipei to a rich and powerful family, I will make him pay by myself. Zhu Yin looked at Su Zipei's beautiful and tender face, full of vitality. She cheered up quickly. A few days later in the school, "What the hell are you writing? Even your brother Su Qinghao's writing is better than yours. It's really a shame for me. Su Zipei, you don't deserve to be my student. You don't have to come tomorrow." Qi Xianqing grabbed the paper and sprinkled it on Su Zipei's face. Su Zipei was so aggrieved that tears were rolling in her eyes. She angrily looked at the paper on the ground and wanted to refute a few words. But the fact was as Qi Xianqing said. Her writing was crooked and the ugliest. Although Su Qinghao's writing was not good-looking, it was straight and neat. But Su Aria's writing, it was so beautiful. Every stroke and every drawing was elegant and graceful, as though it was made by nature itself. Put together with Su Aria's writing, Su Zipei's writing was really a scribble. It was as ugly as dog shit. This is the talent. Qinghao, your second sister's talent in calligraphy is the best I have ever seen. Maybe she will become a master of calligraphy in the future and form a school of her own. You should study hard. Qi Xianqing smiled and said. Su Qinghao looked at the second sister's writing with little stars in his eyes. He admired her very much. It was a pity that women didn't learn martial arts. He wanted to compare notes with the second sister. You must be joking. I have little talent and little learning. I have to learn more. Second sister, you are too modest. I think you're as good as my brother. Ha ha. Qinghao, the three people talked happily, but Su Zipei was ignored as if she was invisible. Her eyes were red again. It's different from what I said. Mother clearly said that I am the best. Why is the second sister better than me? Why does the fourth brother not worship me? It's different from what I said. You are all bad people. I don't care about you. I'm going to find my mother. Su Zipei cried and left, leaving Su Qinghao and Su Aria with astonishment. Qi Xianqing stroked his white beard and smiled. Su Zipei was like her mother. She wanted to kill her sister at a young age. It was obvious that her nature was rotten to the root. How could he teach such a vicious girl to read? He simply drove her away directly. Mother, mother! Su Zipei cried and rushed in from the door. When she saw Zhu Yin, she felt more aggrieved and threw herself in her mother's arms. What's wrong? I have taught you to be calm when things happen. It's useless to cry. Cheer up. Zhu Yin reprimanded with a serious face. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Recently, everything was not going well. It was simply that God was against her. She didn't accomplish anything she wanted to accomplish. Instead, all kinds of troubles came to her. Mother, the teacher said that my handwriting was too ugly. He didn't want to teach me and didn't allow me to go to school. Bang! Zhu Yin patted on the tea table with one hand, and the teacup made a crisp sound. Qi Xianqing, you are going too far. Obviously, I have yielded, but you are still insatiable. Do you really think that I, Zhu Yin, am easy to be bullied? Zhu Yin was angry. She got up and walked out. When she crossed the door, she thought of Su Huanli's exhortation. She thought that she was not welcomed in the Zhu family during this time. She unconsciously slowed down. Mother, don't you help me to seek justice? Seeing her mother stopped halfway, Su Zipei followed her and said with grievance. Zhu Yin sighed deeply. She had too many scruples. She squatted down and stroked Su Zipei's face. She said softly, Zipei, I have my own difficulties. Tomorrow, I will help you find a teacher to teach you alone. After this period of time, I will send you to the best school. Okay? No, it's not good at all. Su Zipei's quiet expression suddenly became ferocious. She said with hatred, other teachers are far worse than Mr. Qi. How can I surpass my second sister? Mother, you are biased. I don't like you. Zhu Yin was shocked and angry. She subconsciously slapped Su Zipei. Slap. Su Zipei's face swelled quickly. She blankly covered her right cheek. Tears quickly accumulated in her eyes. She screamed sadly, Mother, you hit me. Zhu Yin regretted it. She was at a loss and reached out to comfort her. But she was slapped away by Su Zipei, who was full of hatred. Don't be so hypocritical. You have long wanted to change your daughter to love, haven't you? You gotta find Sue area. I'll get out. Su Zipei sneered and left angrily. Zhu Yin covered her face and sighed. She was inexplicably sad. Mother painstakingly planned and fell into such a situation. It's all for you. Unknowingly, it was early summer. In the corridor of the Jinyuan court, Su Li was half lying on the rattan chair. The wind blew through the hall, which was very comfortable. Since Qi Xianqing drove Su Zipei away last time, only she and Su Qinghao were left in the school. There was a lot of fun for no reason. The injury on her back had been healed half a month ago. Qi Xianqing's medical means didn't leave any scars, but the accumulated scars were still there. If she wanted to remove them, she had to cut the wound again. Su Li didn't think that she had so much time to waste. Miss, I went to the account office to get a lot less money this month. Mammy Li walked in from outside the courtyard with a sad face. She said, last month I got 200 taels. This month I only got 30 taels. I want to ask the old butler. He said that he gave 300 taels to the Jinyuan court. I suspect, Mammy, don't guess randomly. If it is heard by others, trouble will come to you again. Su Li got up and held Mammy Li's hand. She comforted her. I still have a lot of savings. It can support me for a long time. Mammy Li sighed slightly. She blamed herself for being useless. In the end, it was the miss who comforted her. Chapter 24. Shaking her head to dispel the weird thoughts, Mammy Li suggested, why don't I do some female work to support the family? You have made the master unhappy because of the first madam last time. This time, no matter how wrong you are, you can't go to him. Mammy Li was smart enough to know that she couldn't go to Su Huanli now. Su Li's eyes flickered slightly, and she said gently, I know. Don't worry. Hey, miss, you can rest for a while. I will prepare lunch right away. Mammy Li answered and went to the kitchen. Su Li bent down and gently closed the dictionary of the hand that Butler Li took from Su Zipei's room. Then she walked to the main courtyard with light steps. Master, second miss wants to see you. At the door of the study, Butler Li reported. Su Huanli put down the account book and frowned slightly. What does this girl come for? She just recovered. She should come to pay respects to the master. Butler Li laughed. Su Huanli snorted. I don't think so. Let her in. The intimacy he had with his second daughter, because of the Zongzi, had long faded away because of the matter of the first madam. Without the help of the Zhu family, the business of the silk shop was simply difficult. What's more, the first madam told him this morning that Area owned the Jinyuan court alone and even made trouble in the accounting office. She wanted 500 taels of silver a month, which was more than the sum of Qing, Hao, and Zipei. Zhu Yin didn't want to pay, but Area even made trouble in the accounting office. Finally, she took 300 taels of silver. It was outrageous. After a while, Su Li in a plain dress slowly came in from outside the door. Perhaps because of the mischief in his heart, Su Huanli didn't feel happy when he saw his second daughter this time. Instead, he felt a little nauseous because of the latter's greed. Daddy, I pay respects to you. The treatment really cost you a lot. Su Li walked to the desk and bowed, apologizing. Su Huanli was unmoved and said in a cold and perfunctory tone, You have a little conscience. What are you doing here? Su Li seemed to be scared by Su Huanli's tone. Her face was slightly pale. She stepped back and said, I just want to explain the accounting office. Okay. Su Huanli thought that Su Li wanted to quibble. He immediately laughed and said, Your mother has told me about it. What else do you have to say? Has mother said it already? Su Li was shocked and said, Daddy, it's not like what my mother said. 300 taels are really too much. I only need 30 taels. Su Huanli heard something wrong. If Su Li said that she didn't take 300 taels, he wouldn't believe it. But he could clearly tell that although his daughter was talking about money, it didn't seem to be the same topic at all. Su Li lowered her head, and her tears fell like pearls. She whispered intermittently, 30 taels is enough for Area. I don't need to increase my allowance. My father is busy with business, so he must spend a lot of money. How can I be so wasteful? I only took 30 taels. Are you saying that your mother increased your allowance? Su Huanli was confused. The more he listened, the more confused he became. He couldn't help but ask. Su Li seemed to be startled. She raised her head and revealed her tear-stained face, like a white flower covered with dew in the morning. Su Huanli was touched. Any normal person would feel distressed when he saw this scene, let alone his daughter standing in front of him. Yes, Butler Lee said that I only let Mammy Lee take 30 taels. It's really voluntary. Daddy, please don't blame my mother. Ah, no, it's... Su Li seemed to have spilled the beans, but she didn't know how to remedy it. She didn't know what to say for a while. Butler Lee stood at the door like a sculpture. He slightly raised the corner of his mouth and couldn't help but sigh. This silly girl. Zhu Yin didn't treat her as a person at all, but she still tried to protect her mother. Although the way seemed to be self-defeating, it didn't prevent him from having a deep feeling of pity for Su Li. She was such a kind and simple girl. Even if Xianxing didn't tell him, he would protect her from being hurt. Well, I know what happened in the accountant's office. Don't cry. Look, this is the cloud cake I bought from the county. Take some back. Su Huanli's cold face melted like ice and snow, and he became a kind father again. Su Li was flattered and took the food box. Her black, gem-like eyes immediately smiled into a crescent shape. Thank you, Daddy. Mammy Lee's already made lunch. Mr. Lee said that frugality is a virtue. I will wait until I am hungry in the afternoon. Ah, good girl, go ahead. Su Huanli laughed heartily. After sending Su Li out, he returned to the room with a gloomy face instantly. He asked in a low voice, Butler, what the hell is going on? The old butler said slowly, Last night, the first madam went to the accountant's office. She first raised Aria's regular money from 200 taels to 300 taels. Then she took all of them away and said that they were sent to Aria. It seems that the second miss only got 30 taels. What she said was a lie. It's outrageous. Su Huanli was angry and said, Why didn't you tell me such an important thing? The old butler lowered his eyes and didn't mention the stupid appearance of Su Huanli, who was cheated before. He whispered, I was about to say it, but the second miss came. The second miss meant that the Lord shouldn't blame the first madam. Don't blame her. Su Huanli banged the desk and said, This is my Su family, not Zhu Yan's bank. Butler, do you have something to hide from me? The old butler buried his head lower and said, The first madam didn't take much before, and even if I said it, the Lord would only believe that I took it all. Crack! The white porcelain teacup was broken on the ground. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. Who is greedy? She even slandered Aria and lied. Has she ever regarded me as her husband? And the Su family? Su Huanli's eyes were red. He was so angry that he almost went crazy. Sadly, he couldn't vent his anger on Zhu Yan. Otherwise, the silk business established by the Su family with the help of the Zhu family would be destroyed. Don't be angry, Lord. Health is the most important thing. Butler Lee quickly persuaded him. You still have Aria? She is so filial. When it came to Aria, Su Huanli felt inexplicably comforted and calmed down. Yes, in such a big Su family, at least there was a daughter who really cared about him. Under the deliberate reminder of Butler Lee, Su Huanli seemed to find the home of his soul at this moment. He looked lively and carefully said, That girl is too simple. If she goes out alone, she may be sold without knowing it. If I go out in the future, how can I rest assured if she stays in the west courtyard alone? Butler, you arrange more servants to protect her. Okay, Lord. Then the first madam, Butler Lee didn't finish his words. Su Huanli looked slightly cold. Keep an eye on her. If she bullies Aria again, you must stop her. When she saves enough money, she will definitely find an excuse to go out again. This time, you must find out the reason. Su Huanli then realized that it was not his second daughter who had embarrassed him, but Zhu Yin who was full of lies. When he drove Zhu Yin away, he felt guilty and kept thinking about how to make up for it. So, when Zhu Yin said the accounting office, he immediately believed it. Damn bitch. Crack. Su Huanli slapped himself fiercely. His eyes were malicious, and the seeds of suspicion took root in his heart. Oh, second miss, where are you going? I am so worried. Mammy Lee stood at the gate of the Genuine court anxiously. When she saw Suli come back, she immediately asked. Suli shed a few tears, but her eyes were not red. Instead, she smiled and said, I just went out for a walk. Mammy Lee, I'm hungry. Let's eat quickly. Mammy Lee saw that she looked as usual and was relieved. The food is ready. Go back to the room to eat quickly. Suli smiled more brightly. After lunch, Mammy Lee was cleaning up the dishes. The old butler suddenly came in from outside the kitchen and asked, Mammy Lee, is the second miss in the courtyard? Seeing the old butler, Mammy Lee was worried and lied. The second miss has already taken a nap. What's the matter? Li Yin's ears moved slightly. He clearly heard Su Li's short breath in the room. She was not asleep. He squinted and said with a smile, Since the second miss is taking a nap, I won't bother her. This is the compensation given by the Lord. Please give it to the second miss when she wakes up. Mammy Lee was slightly shocked and subconsciously took the thing in Li Yin's hand. She looked down and was immediately shocked. Silver, 500 taels. Don't worry. I have explained it to the Lord today. The Lord is angry with the madam. He also asked me to take good care of the second miss in the future. The 500 taels are given by the Lord. Don't worry, Mammy. Li Yin explained in a warm voice. Mammy Lee was suddenly surprised and happy. Great. Now the second miss doesn't have to worry about being bullied. Li Yin smiled slightly and thought that Mammy Lee was also an out-and-out kind-hearted person. She always thought about the second Mississippi. Mammy Lee, I am usually in the accounting room. If the second miss has any trouble in the future, you must tell me. Li Yin said, This is also the Lord's order. Sure. Mammy Lee was grateful and said, Butler, you are really a good person. Li Yin was slightly stunned and smiled bitterly. He was not a good person. Although he wanted to explain this time, it was a thankless task. The relationship between him and the Lord was not as close as that between a husband and a wife. It was the second miss who made the Lord completely sober. After the butler left, Mammy Lee was very happy. She hurried to the study without washing the dishes and said to Su Li, who was practicing calligraphy, Miss, great news. After Mammy Lee said it clearly, Su Li stopped writing and sneered in her heart. She didn't expect that Su Huanli, a profit-seeking old guy, had such a soft side. In this way, she was really embarrassed to do it. Su Li pretended to be surprised and said, Really? That's great. I'm still hesitating whether to find my father. Chapter 25. At this moment, a carriage with exquisite and luxurious decoration stopped outside the gate of the Su house. The curtain was engraved with a big character, Yang. When the coachman lifted the curtain of the carriage, a young man dressed in luxurious golden clothes with an arrogant expression immediately walked out from within. Snap! The young man patted his folding fan. With his handsome face, he had a temperament of a good child. Cousin, Yang Wei, come as promised. The young man strode across the border to the Su house. After a while, there was a sound of ouch. Yang Wei slipped and fell on his face. His mouth was bleeding. He got up and wiped the blood on his face. His expression was gradually distorted. F*CK, your grandma's leg. Which bastard sprinkled lime on the road? It smells like cloud cake. Achoo! Suli inexplicably wiped her nose. Who is talking about me? In the central room, Su Huanli looked at Yang Wei with a swollen face and smiled. You should be careful when you walk. If you're disfigured, it will be troublesome. Do you come here today to return the night luminescent pearl? Yang Wei's face was not red at all. He held his fist and said, Uncle, don't joke. The night luminescent pearl belongs to the county magistrate. I don't have it. I come here today to propose marriage. Su Huanli's smile froze, and he slowly clenched his fist. What do you mean? Yang Wei didn't seem to realize that he made Su Huanli unhappy. He continued, Last year, I fell in love with Miss Zipei at first sight. I hope you can help me. Bastard. Su Huanli slammed the table and shouted, Little bastard, you stole the treasure of the Su family last year and delayed my son's career for a year. How dare you come here today? Get out of here. Yang Wei stood up as if to apologize, but his expression was still cold and arrogant. He smiled and said, "Uncle, don't be impulsive. It's better to listen to the betrothal gift I brought." "What?" Su Huanli restrained his anger and raised his eyebrows slightly. He said slowly, "If it's something unpresentable, don't think about marrying the daughter of the Su family." Yang Wei was confident and said proudly, "I believe that as long as you listen to it, you will definitely agree." An hour later, Su Huanli's face was complicated. Yang Wei felt proud and held his fist and said, "Since you have agreed, I will go back and tell my parents. Take care, my dear nephew." Su Huanli immediately got up and put on a smiling face. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Yang Wei was much worse than Qing Tan. There were countless talents in the county city, so he was not surprised that this idiot had failed. But this lad actually ran into some dog-shit luck and managed to latch onto a thigh in the county capital. As a result, he was able to obtain the position of supervisor. The affairs of the world were truly unpredictable. The news of Yang Wei's arrival reached the west courtyard early the next morning. "What? Cousin, why didn't you come to see me?" Su Zipei jumped out of bed with a look of surprise. She dressed up and was about to go out, but when she heard the maid say that Yang Wei had left, she couldn't help but feel disappointed. Did cousin forget the agreement between them? Zhu Yin frowned and cursed in her heart. Useless trash. He didn't even pass the preliminary examination of the county town. I wanted to use him to get in touch with the rich and powerful families in Yunjing and find out the origin of the jade pendant. It seems that it is impossible. Mammy Li also heard the news and told Su Li. Su Li was not surprised, but said on the surface, "Counting the days, the results of last year's preliminary examination in the county town have come out. Cousin Yang Wei didn't go to Yunjing. He probably failed." When Mammy Li heard the words, she suddenly said strangely, "It should be so. I heard that Master Yang's talent is far less than that of the first master." However, Master Yang didn't seem to be disappointed this time. Instead, he was full of joy. Su Li was silent, and her black eyes were as deep as the sea. Since her rebirth, she only changed the fate of her eldest brother, Su Qingtan. In the previous life, the Su family was unable to bribe Li Shanbao, so the position finally fell on the master of the Zhu family. The eldest brother was selected in the third year. However, Yang Wei flattered the young master of the satrap and became a supervisor of Qinga County. Li Shanbao was threatened by him everywhere. Finally, he gave up the Baiwei building to keep his position. It seemed that Yang Wei would come to marry Su Zipei in a few days. Su Li smiled perfectly. She had been waiting for this good show for a long time. "Mammy Li, prepare the carriage. I want to go to the county town," Su Li suddenly said. Mammy Li was stunned at first, and then she nodded with surprise and joy. "Miss, you are finally willing to go out for a walk. It will be summer soon. Miss, you don't even have a nice dress. You should buy some." And Mammy Li went out of the courtyard while muttering. Her eyes were wet. This was the second Mrs. first time to go out. Thinking of the torture of the first madam in the past, the second miss even had a problem to eat. Now she finally lived a normal life. It was not easy. After a while, Mammy Li came back happily, followed by Butler Li. "It is the second Mrs. first time to go shopping. For safety, I arranged 2 guards to follow you. Remember to be careful. If you are in danger, run to the Bai Chao Tang." Su Li nodded slightly. "Thank you, Butler Li. I will be careful." Li Yin's eyes flickered slightly, and he nodded with a smile. From the surface, he really couldn't see whether the girl had accepted the inheritance of Qi Xianqing. "Go!" The coachman shouted all the way. In less than 10 minutes, the noise outside the carriage became louder from far to near. "Miss, we are catching up with the morning market. There are too many people on the road, and the carriage can't drive through. Let's get off early," the coachman of the Su family suggested nervously. It was the first time that he met the second miss of the Su family, and he didn't know the latter's temperament. Su Li lifted the curtain of the carriage, glanced around, and nodded warmly. "Yes, we should get off. If the carriage occupies such a crowded road, it will be bullying." Then, Suli quickly got off the carriage. She was a little unstable, and Mammy Lee quickly held her. The coachman was stunned, and his impression of Su Lee was greatly improved. The second miss was so kind. If she was like the third miss, she would definitely scold him and let him rush over directly. Asking the coachman to wait here, Su Lee and Mammy Lee entered the market along the street. Their bright and luxurious clothes immediately distinguished them from ordinary people, which attracted people's attention. Which family does this miss come from? She is so beautiful, like a fairy. If I can marry such a wife, I am willing to die immediately. Go, go, go. Dream on. I know the old Mammy. She is from the Su family. Is she Suzy Pei? I have seen Suzy Pei. She is not as beautiful as her. The whispers were drowned in the noise, but many of them were heard by Mammy Lee, which made Mammy Lee smile and whisper, Miss, they are all praising you for your beauty. Su Lee blushed and stamped her feet slightly. Mammy, don't make fun of me anymore. Su Lee's coquettish behavior immediately stunned many people and bumped into others. Which blind little bastard bumped into your grandpa? Who are you calling a little bastard? I'm talking about you, little bastard. I'll kill you, son of a bitch. The scene was chaotic, and Mammy Lee quickly dragged Su Lee away. They didn't stop until they ran to the East Street where there were fewer people. Hey, look, Mammy. It turns out that this is the Byway building. I have long wanted to see it. Su Lee's eyes were bright. She left Mammy Lee, who was still resting, and went straight in. Mammy Lee took a breath and helplessly followed Su Lee. Miss, wait for me. As for the two guards, they had already been separated in the bazaar. The Byway building was quite cold in the morning, and only some guests were enjoying breakfast. As soon as Su Lee sat down, a quick-witted waiter ran to her and said enthusiastically, What would you like to order? The dishes in our restaurant are famous for their delicious food. Su Lee's eyes were bright. Do you have any signature dishes? The waiter immediately replied, Of course. Recently, the most delicious dish in the Byway building is the fragrance of 100 leaves. Would you like to have a try? Then serve me 2 servings of fragrance of 100 leaves and all the signature dishes. Okay, wait a moment. After the waiter went down, Mammy Lee just climbed to the second floor. Seeing Su Lee, she hurriedly ran to her and complained, Miss, wait for me. I'm old and can't run fast. I know. Su Lee's tone was soft. Mammy Lee must be tired. Sit down and have a rest. I order a lot of delicious dishes. Miss, will you order too much? There are only 2 of us. If we can't finish it, it will be a waste. Faced with the first order of her miss, Mammy Lee was worried as expected. Don't worry, Mammy Lee. If we can't finish it, we can take it back. Hearing Su Lee's words, Mammy Lee was more worried. Here are the dishes. At this time, the waiter shouted and came over with a large plate of dishes. When Mammy Lee saw the dishes on the tray, her eyes almost popped out. Miss, these 10 dishes are the signature dishes of our restaurant. They are 5 spices roast boar, kung pao chicken, jinxiang fish skewers, fragrance of 100 leaves. In the blink of an eye, the square table was full of dishes. Su Lee ate with relish. Mammy Lee smiled bitterly. Since the miss had moved the chopsticks, these dishes couldn't be returned. She'd better eat. While eating, Mammy Lee found that her miss was really wasteful. She only moved her chopsticks once or twice for each dish. She didn't eat the dishes even if they were ruined. She didn't know what she was doing. Su Lee tasted the last dish of boar and took a sip of tea. Her eyes were clear. The Byway building could dominate the county because it had the capital. Even if these dishes were placed in the county town, they could attract many customers. However, compared with all kinds of delicacies taught by her husband in the previous life, they were still far behind. Su Lee smiled slightly, and her eyes fell on the so-called fragrance of 100 leaves. Mammy Lee happened to pick up a piece and put it into her mouth. The next moment, Mammy Lee's eyes widened, and she whispered in surprise, Miss, isn't this your zongzi? How did it become the signature dish of the Byway building? The fragrance of 100 leaves on the plate was a group of rice balls with complicated decorations. It was almost impossible to see the cooking method. The appearance was far from zongzi, but the taste was definitely the same. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.